Good evening. It is March 24th at 7 o'clock. And having a quorum present, I'd like to call the Warrant Committee meeting to order. We have Brent Nelson is joining us remotely, so we'll have to do roll call tonight. So maybe just
Mazzella present.
Elizabeth Kelly present. Jill Router present.
Joe Hunt present.
Steve Callahan present.
Ashley LeDuc present. Emily McKean present.
Peter Michelson present.
And Brent?
Brent Nelson participating remotely.
Yeah, you're a little faint. I don't know if we can. Is this, can I press the plus button? Say something, Brent.
Just Brent Nelson participating remotely.
Okay, that's better. Thank you. I know how to press the pause button. All right. This meeting is being held in hybrid format. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so in person or via Zoom. And the link is on the meeting notice. Our meeting materials are in the Warrant Committee package on the website. And so tonight we have a very busy schedule. We have some minutes to approve. And then we have a number of warrant articles. And I thought what we would do is maybe start with a follow-up discussion of the citizens petition from last meeting. And then talk about the Park and Rec article for Hinckley. And then we have some folks from the Energy Committee here. We'll hear from them on the opt-in specialized energy stretch energy code, and then we'll hear some zoning articles that we will go through, and then we'll see how far that takes us. I'd like to save some time like we did last time to have continue our discussion on the override. And so we'll see, maybe around 8:30, 8:45-ish. We'll see how it goes. And if we have time, we'll cover some of these other articles. And we have some updates from committee. So that's basically the agenda. The first item is the citizens petition. So from last.
You want your minutes, right?
I'm sorry, minutes, right? Yes, thank you, Peter. So did everybody have a chance to read those minutes? Joe did a great job.
Awesome job.
Nice job.
We're setting a trend on length of minutes with AI.
I just have why he used to make a font.
So you're saying he cheated?
Yes. I was editing late at night, so I couldn't see it as well.
All right, any comments or questions on those? No, if not, I entertain a motion to approve the March 10th Warrant Committee minute.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. I go into a roll call, so.
Mazzella, yeah.
Yes. Abstain, I was out.
Okay,
Joe Hunt, yes.
so Jill Rafter abstained.
Yeah.
Steve Callahan, yes.
Ashley LeDuc, yes. I'm gonna abstain too because I wasn't there.
Emily abstains.
Peter Michelson, yes.
And Brent?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay. Okay, so in terms of calendar, I think I told you all last week we were going to meet on the 6th. We need that extra meeting. So next week is the Warrant Committee hearing. So we'll dedicate the first part of that to the hearing, and then we'll continue our discussions on articles. And if we can vote on certain things, we'll start that. But if we can't, by April 6th, that meeting, we have to be done and vote on stuff. So because the warrant has to get printed and mailed out. So that process has to start. And then
What's the latest?
Last week. No. I don't know.
Soon after the 6th.
Very soon.
Okay.
okay. All right. So Any other questions on that? Okay, that calendar. So continuing our discussions from the last meeting on the citizens petition. So I did send around a memo that I think tried to provide some background because I think it was sort of confused during our meeting. So you know, it basically, you know, talks about the history of Park and Rec and how they've, you know, for 20 years they've wanted a dedicated facility. But you know, what's happened is that larger and more time sensitive projects have taken priority, right? So you know, I think Mike Quinlan, who's here tonight, helped me with some of this background to straighten it out. But basically, the PVC was formed in 2011. It had 4 major building projects requiring attention, and they prioritized them as the DPW first, the police and fire second, and then Dale Street, and then fourth was a Park and Rec building. So the town could not advance a school project until it was accepted into the MSBA program, which delayed the process on all major capital projects. And we, you know, there was a feasibility started in 16. Then there was that was a fiscal feasibility looking at program needs, and then a subsequent feasibility with Abacus that looked at different sites, including the Sledding Hill, the FAF location, and the Hinckley property in Metacomet. And then the town got accepted into the MSBA program. And I believe that at that time it was determined that it couldn't advance both a school and a Park and Rec facility at the same time. So the Abacus study never reached the stage of recommending a preferred concept or site. And then during the Dale Street project, as we all know, they had a plan to develop and construct the new school at Wheelock and not demolish Dale Street and allow its use as a temporary home for Park and Rec for at least a 10-year period. And so that was at the time viewed as the most efficient sequencing of capital needs. And so that you all know that the project failed. And then since then, the director of Park and Rec and several commission members have changed. And we all know that the center was closed in 2004, November 2004. So, you know, I had like 7 points here that, you know, I think when I went through and looked at the petition, it basically said that it looks like it's not, you know, it's not in accordance with the bylaw. It's directing an action of the Permanent Plan and Building Committee. The bylaw says that the user department, which would be Park and Rec in this case, it has to initiate a project request. And then the select board reviews it and refers it to the Permanent Plan and Building Committee. And then the Permanent Plan and Building Committee conducts a feasibility work only after they get referred from the select board. And my understanding is Park and Rec has not submitted an application to the select board for a FAF specific project. The petition would direct, you know, the Permanent Plan Building to begin that study without a user department request or the select board referral. So it's basically bypassing the governance that we have in place in the town. And I think the select board memo in 2019, which I sent to you all, that sort of reinforces that framework of collaborating with the different departments and the different roles of what, you know, it's not the job of the Permanent Plan Building Committee to do programming studies of different departments for building needs. That's the user department's responsibility. So the second one is that it's kind of premature based upon, and maybe we'll hear from Lauren about the study that they did, which it makes it sort of unclear what the town's preference is for a site. It was 700 people. They asked where they would like to see a Park and Rec facility, and 25% said FAF, 32 said other sites, and 29 said they're unsure. And then 12% wrote in other locations. So, and then there's already funding. We talked about that. And Mike, I have a question for you. There's $110,000 that's available from the 2018 article. And is that sufficient to complete the study?
I guess it's possible.
Yeah.
So you can shape the study to fit the budget. You can shape the budget to fit the study. If it's not reevaluating and starting from scratch, then yes, we could probably complete something of a feasibility study with that. But it really depends on how far you want to go with the feasibility study. Obviously, pricing has changed dramatically in 8 years. So to do it right, probably would require some more funds to do a real feasibility study and do it properly, especially with the new information, right? Like, so things have changed since then.
Yeah.
The FAFSA is falling down. Not that we were going to save it in the first place, but it's a new issue that we need to face. So
Okay.
If it comes down to it, you could probably complete a very basic feasibility study and site evaluations to get to a point where at the very least Parks and Rec could say, this is our preferred location, this is our preferred concept, and bring that back to the town for design funds. That said, supplementing that 110 with another, 50 or 60 would probably give you a more thorough investigation into potential sites.
All right. Okay.
So I mean, I don't want to say definitively either way, because you can do it either way, but it really depends on what you want as the end result of the delivery.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So then the fourth point is that the FAF site is not at imminent risk. I know we heard that it was during when the petitioner was here. The SBC has stated that they will only consider the FAF location only if Park and Rec declines site. They say if they come to them and say, we've decided we want to put a facility at a different site. We don't want this site. And the SBC has no authority to use the FAF parcel for school purposes. Any change in the use of that land would require a 2/3 vote at town meeting. So it's and the SBC, as Peter mentioned, is sort of in this early conceptual stage. They haven't proposed any use of that land yet at this point. They're still getting,
and they won't until there's on board.
There's
nothing for them to do until they have a design team.
Okay.
And we have not had that discussion with it at all.
Yeah.
Not even in a conversation. And we have talked to it.
Okay. And yeah, that's the fifth point, that there seems to be communication between all of these groups, the Park and Rec, PBC, and the SBC. They're sort of
going back. Well, at least I won't talk about the SBC, but going back decades, we've been talking about Parks and Rec for at least as long as I've been involved, since 2011. But I know it goes back before that, because Parks and Rec and the COA had talked about it back in 2007. And that ended up with them not agreeing to be in the same building. So, and then Parks and Rec, basically said, okay, we're going to step aside and let COA go first. And COA went first. And then the rest is history. They still haven't gotten an adequate facility for them. Yeah.
And I think that, currently, I would say that the current commission is got, they've done this survey, which hopefully we'll hear from you about that. They've looked at, they've done some work on sites, and they're re-engaging with you, Mike, on a long-term facility planning. And they've met with the SBC, like you just heard. So I think the planning process is sort of been rejuvenated with the current commission. And then the bigger point though is that this capital sequencing and debt policy, I think, as we all know, we have in our financial policy, we have a policy that says debt should not exceed 10% of the revenue, right? And that's there for a reason. It's there because we don't want to burden one generation of taxpayers with multiple buildings, right? We want to sequence it out and phase it out. And so, with the Dale Street School coming down in the short period of time here, that sequencing is important, right? And so the survey that was done asked the question about how much would you be willing to pay for a new facility, park and rec facility. It asked a lot of questions, but that particular question, most respondents fell within the $100 to $200 range per household. And so when you do some math, which I put in the memo, it basically that level of taxes supports like a fairly small size building, like 4,000 to 8,000 square feet. And I think the petition is, my reading of the petition was that they wanted a modern size, larger facility. So there's this gap between what program definition is, site constraints, capital budgeting, what people are think they want, and what they're willing to pay for it.
Since they think things cost.
Yes.
They actually
Yeah.
One thing just also to add, if you don't mind, Steve, is one thing people often don't realize is that Parks and Rec is not the only revenue generating department in town.
Preach, Mike.
So I'm here for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so, building a facility that fosters revenue generation is actually a good thing for the town. So, so I just don't want to lose sight of that, we all need the DPW and police and fire and the schools, but they generally are, we're paying for them 100%. And, with Parks and Rec, giving them something that's, a postage stamp where they can't generate those revenues is just going to end up meaning less money for the town, not more.
Yeah.
That being said, if we were to have to, because I think you and I, Steve, did some initial math on if Parks and Rec would incur all of the debt for a new building, we cannot do that. We can't run enough programming to actually cover the whole debt ourselves, because we'd have to hire more staff and we'd have to increase our prices, which then defeats the point of a community person. So I think I have seen, on different blogs that it has been mentioned in the past that Parks and Rec could self-fund a building that's not financially, it's not realistic at all. I
Right.
mean, we would have to run programming like 24 hours a day, and the operation costs would offset the increased revenue. So it would, but with as Mike said, with a bigger building, we do have projections from the last feasibility study of how we could generate revenue. And that's one of our main intentions with the upcoming feasibility study is to, take the ideas of what the community wants and programming and facilities and figure out, what our revenue model would be based on that.
Yeah.
That was what drove the Hunden study,
Yeah.
the financial study, was, what's the appropriate level that would help to foster that revenue generation, and what size of facility is needed to run that program.
Okay. So, and then there's a comment in here on the equity community access, which I think Joe had commented on. So that's the memo. I don't know what people thought, but is there anything that we should talk about further, or do you have any other comments that people have questions, I guess, for Park and Rec as it relates to just this article? We'll talk about their other things, but as it relates to just this article.
If somebody says it all and starts with bylaw compliance, that alone in of itself would be a reason not to
go forward with this, but, and the timing, everything else that you mentioned.
Okay,
So that's where I would stand.
all right.
I thought it was an excellent memo. Boy, what a lot of work you put in. Thank you. Another point that stuck out to me was reference to it being intergenerational, as if there was supposed to be space for the elderly like me in it. And we have a council on aging. We have a pretty good new facility there. And I haven't heard any talk that they're banging down the doors asking for more space. So
Yeah,
I found that at a minimum, that aspect of it was sort of underdeveloped.
yeah, okay. All right.
Well, I know in the past, in our discussions with Parks and Rec is they've always been open to having programming that, is multi-generational, not just focused. And part of the reason they couldn't provide that is because of the space limitations. But one of the things that has been a part of our discussions through the years has been, not only seniors, but also, middle school, high school level, where there's, you know, a big gap for those, especially those kids who don't play sports and things like that. So having some space that allowed more programming to reach a broader part of the community has been everything they've always talked about, at least with me.
And more adult programming. I mean, we would definitely like to add more adult programming. We've been doing kind of like one-off small things and it's been really positively received, but there is not a lot of programming for, you know, like middle-aged, and or it would be with your kids. Sometimes you don't want to get away. No, like,
Dover does a lot of that.
yeah, that's so much, and we could do it. I mean, and they're just like Katie and her team were doing such great innovative things in the small spaces that we have. But if we had a space that was dedicated, we could have more programming. As Mike said, definitely teens are our top priority. We rented the teen summer camp, but we want to do more after school teen programming, but also adult.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions for on this article on the citizens petition? Okay. All right.
I want to vote on this tonight or wait till April 6th?
I don't know. What do people think? We probably could vote on it tonight, but unless we have more questions, okay. All right, why don't we take a vote on it tonight then?
What would the motion be? All in favor of not proceeding with this?
No action. No, we would take no action on
Is that
this.
the Warrant committee recommends dismissal or no action? Or?
I think no action sounds nicer, but
Okay.
I mean, it's in my mind, they're the same, but no action sounds nicer.
Okay.
Just well, people can be confused by that.
It would be new language.
Would it be new language? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, we can use dismissal then. All right. So what the motion would be that that with regards to the citizens petition, we would vote to dismiss that particular article.
So moved.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a vote then.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
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 And Brent?
Yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous. Motion carries. Okay. All right, so why don't you got Nick and Lauren come on up and sit here?
I don't think we're in trouble.
No.
Not getting sworn in. So
Let's see.
You're okay.
So people can hear you on the. Nothing. They probably could hear it back there, but.
I don't think anybody's ever said they can't hear Nick or me.
Thank you.
It's true.
So I had two things we wanted to hear from you on. One was interested, when we last met last week, your survey had just come out.
Yeah.
So we'd like to maybe learn a little bit more about it. And then talk about the article that you have in the warrant this year. So
Sure. Well, I can talk about the survey. We sent it out after a conversation with the school building committee that we had in late November. Just trying to see if people actually did want the FAF center to be rebuilt or a community center to be rebuilt at the FAF. And just to get a sense of if there was kind of an appetite for trying to partner with construction concurrently with the school. We are not trying to bypass the school project in any way, but there's been a lot of rhetoric, at least with the questions towards us, about could you partner with the school? And we are not interested in trying to derail the school project in any way, or trying to force the community to choose a community center over the school. But we did want to just kind of get some clarity because, it seems like a lot of information, especially around the FAF, seems mostly generated on concerned citizens, which is not really a great news source. So as a data-driven person, we thought, let's just get some real data. So we did a survey. We sent it out through all of the channels. The town sent it out for us. Parks and Rec, we sent it out to our distribution list with many reminders and just tried to use the normal channels to get as wide of a variety of responses as possible so that we could really get some generalizability. So not just people that are frequent users or no users, but kind of everything in between. And what we found kind of is what you've already said is that our main interest was what is it that people want and where do they want it and how much would they pay for it? Because as you've seen, if you ask somebody on a scale of 1 to 7, how important is something to you, there's 7s all the way. But then when you ask them to rank it, or you start to put, a monetary amount to it, then that changes quite significantly. So, it seems like the majority of our respondents are users of the FAF, maybe 20% or rarely or never, but they're voters too. So it was important to include them. So when we asked them, we listed all of the things that we've seen in the previous Hendon study, and then, just anecdotally of what's important. And everybody said, oh, all of these things are important. But then when we asked them to rank everything, the things that were most important were an indoor gymnasium, indoor basketball courts. We don't have any indoor regulation basketball courts in town besides the school, which that has to be used for the school. So we don't have any indoor regulation basketball. And then indoor turf or multi-purpose fitness weight room. I think people would like a more affordable, accessible option for a weight room that's not, a membership club, something that they could drop in and use, or maybe have like a more accessible price point. The lowest, which was interesting, feature that people wanted when they had to rank it was actually pickleball courts. So we hear the pickleball community is very vocal in their desire for pickleball, but the community overall suggests that that's the lowest on the priority list of all of these, whatever it is, 20 priorities. So the top are exactly what you would think: recreation space, indoor turf, indoor. This past winter shows us that we need more indoor spaces for kids to run around and not have to drive to Fort Dix. So that was interesting to me, because just based on what the feedback that Nick and I get from the community, you would think that we have to build pickleball courts tomorrow, and the surveys actually suggest otherwise, which is kind of great. And then we asked where people would want it, and this is what you mentioned earlier. So really only a quarter of the participants said that the current FAF central location was their top priority. Really, what I thought was more interesting was that 30% said they're not sure, they don't care. So that showed to me that there's actually more of a need for a community center than there is for a need for a community center at the FAF. In a perfect world, we would love to have it at the FAF, but just the demolition alone for the FAF and the remediation is way outside our current budget. So, so the next highest was so the highest was not sure, and then the current FAF location, and then Hinckley. And then there was only, which was surprising, an 8% interest for Metacomet. So it seems just from the survey, which again is 700 people, that's not entirely generalizable. We don't have, full external validity on this, but it does signal that, the community doesn't necessarily feel like this has to be a And then mostly people wanted something with an accessible central location. That seemed to be their top priority, and then just available space and walkability. So being able to actually walk to the community center, which does, kind of give us a little bit of a problem at McCarthy. And the thing that they were worried about, like concerns regarding location, was parking capacity. I mean, we did not have great parking capacity. The fact we had to use the parking lot with Dale. So that's probably obviously a concern with the new building. And then would you support public funding for a community center through a property tax increase? Over 60% said yes, which is promising. But then when we were asked them to put hard numbers to it, the majority were in the $100 to $200 range, or almost 30% said they're not sure, that they need more information. So, which again is fair. So I think the highest response for that was not sure and need more information. And then we asked what they would think about different revenue models, because currently our revenue model is pay for programs usage. And so we did ask for what were their thoughts on, a membership model or some kind of hybrid model where you pay a membership and then there's an a la carte fee structure. And there actually seemed to be some interest in that. I mean, almost 60% or over 60% said that they would want to continue with this pay to use. But if we added a fitness center, maybe we could do a membership model, which would help stabilize our revenue, because right now the majority of our revenue comes from summer camps. So a membership model would be great for us long term if we could do that. And we've never asked for feedback on a revenue model before, or at least not in the past like 7 or 8 years. So that was good to get feedback on. And then, almost 70% of the respondents said that they would be very likely to use it should we build a community center. And then, we asked about what concerns people might have, and it was an open-ended response. So I did just use an aggregator to aggregate that for us. And, most people just were concerned about the school projects and potential, it interfering with the school project and additional continued tax increases, which I think is totally fair. So, because our commitment is to being accessible, so we don't want to just be accessible at the expense of making living in Medfield inaccessible. So that's kind of it.
Was there other than the pickleball coach, did you get surprised by any other question?
We've heard a lot, swimming pools, hockey rinks,
Yeah.
everything that has a big price tag.
Yeah.
We've heard of. I think pickleball has been probably the number one. I love pickleball, but right now I'd rather have it. It is. I wish I was a little bit younger. I'd go pro. No, for us, this is a first that we've done really at this job, and kudos to Lauren. This is her background. The information that we got was so valuable and somewhat surprising. I thought the most surprising was the option of people or the want of people to not really care where it's going.
Yeah.
That to me was, I thought, just looking at some of the blogs in general, that are out there and concerned citizens, walkability, let's have it at the FAF, but it really was surprising.
I also think something that was interesting too was that people were kind of interested in more non-traditional things. I mean, meeting space is really important. I mean, I know Elizabeth and I did Girl Scouts. There's like only 2 places for your Girl Scouts to meet in Medfield, and trying to get in the library on a Sunday is like the Hunger Games. So it would be great to have more meeting space, but also something that the community showed interested in, which I think maybe just because we asked, but was like a kitchen space, just like not even necessarily a commercial kitchen, but just, being able to have more food preparation type classes for young people, or, just being able to have a space where you could actually use a kitchen. So if you wanted to host parties, like I think a huge revenue opportunity for us is to allow families to host birthday parties. We did start doing it at the FAF. We're starting to do it at Hinckley. I mean, that's a great revenue generator for us. And so if we had a kitchen to then support the food, not necessarily preparation, but just storage for an event, I mean, that could be huge revenue generator for us. It doesn't actually cost us anything from an operational perspective. So, that was kind of interesting. I mean, just, there is a need for more makerspace here and more, I mean, obviously the priority is on sports, but I do think that there is also an opportunity for more art. I know that we have different programs around, but I think that that's an untapped, I have like a non-sporty kid, like there's not that much for her to do. So having that, I think, would be great.
And to add on what Mike said earlier with like Dover, I think everyone's seen it in the mailbox.
Yeah.
Their programming.
It infuriates Nick every time we get there. He's like, we should be doing that. I'm like, where?
I read it cover to cover, and they've got just everything for every age group and every
Yeah.
demographic. When Lauren mentioned just like cooking classes, I actually took a class at the Water Street Kitchen in Holliston to learn how to make poorly sourdough bread. And I spent $85, spent 3 hours there one night. And it's fantastic. And there was at least 20 people in there. That's a lot. That's $1,600 right there for 2-3 hours. And it's just a table and an instructor. And it was fantastic. And that's something that we could do. And it's not like I can call up tomorrow and get in that class. It's 2 months out. They have a pasta making class. They have a charcuterie board class. Those are the things that you say, oh, well, $1,600. It adds up.
Yeah.
And it's money makers, and it's missed opportunities for us.
And I also think from a community perspective, I mean, something that's really important to Nick and me and the rest of the commission is actually building community. I mean, it's like, we need to have opportunities for people that don't get to bump into each other to bump into each other. I think it would be so much easier to have civil discourse over a sourdough class than over a keyboard. So we just want to foster and develop more community-centric programming that, is inclusive. We're trying, even now with our limited space, we're trying to build more adaptive programming for, so that all children feel welcome and have space. And if we had more space, we could do so many. Do some things. But again, we are not interested in building something at the expense of the school, and we don't want the town to have to choose between the two of us. So we think we have a solution for getting us through the next couple of years until we can. I'm not going to let anybody move us down on the list again. I feel like I'm going to go all nobody puts baby in the corner going forward. However, so we've got. You're welcome. I can't do them with my students anymore because I've aged out of what they watch. So I need to find the right audience. So thank you for getting that. But like, we think we have a solution to get us through the next couple of years until, some of the debt from the other buildings gets paid off, and then we move to the top of the list.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that might be a good segue.
We're not asking for.
That might be a good segue to talk about your article.
What we're looking at, it's not a 20 or 30,000 square foot facility. We'd love that, but I don't think the appetite for the town or the time is right. And it hasn't been over the last 10 years.
Right.
Because as you said earlier, Steve, more important things take precedence with public safety or DPW. So we really, at this point, our headquarters is at the UCC. We've been very fortunate to have a very nice, accommodating landlord, and really a nice setting for us to continue our programming. I can't speak enough about the town and departments that have been so helpful for us in this transient space, the transient type of environment that we live in today. We've kept it together with baling wire and bubble gum. Our programs are running beautifully. We just had summer camps, and it sold out like a 1980s concert where you just hit the button on the computer.
like a Taylor Swift concert.
I said,
We just got doxxed for being old, so.
I know. Well, I did that analogy. It was Bruce Springsteen, and then I got changed to Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
So really, what we're looking to do is to have a home similar to the FAF, a size a little bit bigger than that, and really a forever home for our headquarters, and not just call it, the Park and Rec headquarters, but truly a community center, a start at least as a community center. If we look around at the properties that we have today in the locations, where there's facilities, electricity, water, sewage, everything else, really the focus was Hinckley. And we went down this path last year of looking at a modular setup where we got pricing as a rental for year one. And the town appropriated $165,000. We're super excited about that, put it out to RFP. And I don't know what happened in the world, but everything we got back was $500,000 upwards to, I think, $1 million. One of them was $1 million. And that was very much a modular structure. So what we looked at was proposing another building, more of a prefab. So this isn't something that's going to roll in on wheels for 2 or 3 years and roll out. It's there. And we're looking for the property down at Hinckley to do that. So I've gone and spoken to a couple different construction companies that specialize in doing prefab buildings. A lot of these companies, they have kind of a setup where they just stamp out a certain size in a certain one. This one is called KBS Builders. They're out of Maine. And they've came down and looked at the site at Hinckley and thought it was ideal for really the limited amount of site work. It's fairly flat, but there is site work to be done. And I just asked, what can we put there today? And gave them a round number of 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. The Fast Center, I think, the top floor is around 4,400. I think 8,800 is the total, including the basement. I'm not sure if it's a full basement.
Smaller, because it's not a
Yeah,
full basement.
I haven't gone down there, so
You don't want to go down.
Because it's here.
You know.
I've never gone down there, so that's news to me.
I'm sure the bodies are buried.
So really,
Don't even joke about that.
washed away with all the rain. So really, we've had some discussions, what we wanted to do. And basically, the building built out of 6 boxes, and they're shipped down from Maine, they're patched together. They were all fully fitted with electrical, wiring, plumbing, everything else. And it's just boom, dropped. Whether it's on footings is to be identified, or whether it's going to be on a full slab. We haven't gotten that far.
Both.
Both. Okay, both. And so right now, what we have as a ballpark is a 5,400 square foot facility. We don't know exactly what the occupancy would be, but it'd be around 40 to 50, we're thinking. Right now, it's how we're going to configure the interior for office spaces. We don't need grand office. We need space to have classes, to have programs. So, we haven't gone down the fine details of it, but we've gone down some basic pricing. And the pricing that we've gotten just for the building itself is just a shade over $1 million, plus or minus 10%. Site work, the ballpark was around 570. Now we can do a lot of our work through our DPW that might mitigate that cost, but we're still I'm throwing out the big numbers because I don't know where it's going to land as we get further down the development. So it's around a 157 to 16. That could be a plus or minus 10%. And that's what we're looking for the fab, because
you're going to need more than that. You still need to pay a civil engineer,
Civil
you
engineer.
still need to pay a structural engineer.
Mhm.
So there's all this soft costs associated with that
Yeah.
you're not factoring in. So, I mean, I wouldn't.
so I'm not stopping right at the
Yeah,
16,
I wouldn't stop at
because we don't
16.
even have the engineering
Right.
plans, design, and everything else.
So
So
what is the address for this warrant?
Yeah, so Nick, let me ask you some questions, because I think, we just talked about the citizens petition that they weren't following a process, right? And the bylaw has a process, right? It's sort of like, you have to go through select board, get these guys engaged to do, feasibility study, put it out to bid, get hard numbers, then you come to town meeting. Particularly for borrowing of that amount, So I'm wondering, do you need more time to do that? I guess is what I'm thinking. How far along that process are you?
We have not put it out to bid yet. I mean,
No, you need to get So typically the process we follow is the first step is feasibility.
Mhm.
Okay, that identifies the problem, it identifies all the questions. And the result is a preferred site.
Yeah.
Which you may have a preference, but we want to make sure we're at least exploring all options. Some of which we've already done as part of the previous feasibility study that was paused.
And
Um,
sorry to interrupt, but may I just ask one quick question?
Yeah.
Since we'd already talked about doing the modular last year, though, and gone through that process, do we still need to do a feasibility study for like a modular slash prefab? So he's using these terms synonymously.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And there's a difference, and I talked to Steve a little bit about this, there's a difference between modular and prefab. And also in terms of lifespan
Right.
expectancy versus a permanent structure. And so we have our process that we follow, which is really designed for permanent structures. We have the ability, as written into the bylaw, to delegate or to say you can run with this to a particular department. If it's something like, say, for instance, the garage structure at the COA. We're not involved in that. Checking in every now and then, just seeing how it's going, making sure it's, moving ahead, but it's not something that we need to be involved in building a garage. For something like this, if it's a temporary condition, it's really a question of how far down the path. If we're actually building permanent structures like foundations, which a modular would need, that's a different issue. And that's where.
I mean, a prefab would need it.
Prefab, excuse me. You're right. Thank you for getting my own term. That's more permanent, but it's more of a medium term approach, right? And that'll get you through 15 to 20 years, maybe. But it's not a 50-year structure like.
because we hope in 50 years we get a new building.
Look, I'm with you, and
Hopefully in like 10.
my concern in the history of since I've been involved for past 15 years is that if we keep kicking the can down the road, the next school is going to be needed, and then we got a problem because then we still have to do something for Park and Rec because they have no home, and then we've got another school that could because we've already kicked the can 5 years down the road when it failed the last time. It doesn't pass this time. We're kicking the can at least 5 more years down the road, if not, further.
Yeah.
And if we look at the master plan that was put together, and we have a huge deficit on some of our other structures in terms of deferred maintenance. And that's just going to keep snowballing because we're not throwing enough money at it to keep it stable. So my long-term concern for Parks and Rec goes beyond just getting a structure. It's where does that timing fit? Because right now, if we have a window for Dale, then there's a gap maybe that fits in 5 or 10 years down the road for Parks and Rec. Because at the most 10 years, probably from completion of a Dale project, we're going to start talking about Wheelock, and we're going to start talking about more.
Yeah, I did look at this when we maybe a year or two ago when we established our debt policy. We have some existing debt, a little bit for the DPW left, and then there's the public safety is the big piece. Right. But in 10 years we're debt free basically. So that existing debt runs out in like a 10-year period. So if you add in the Dale, right, there's probably room within our policy like in that like 5 to 10 year period. So thinking in terms of short, a medium term, and a long term solution probably makes sense. Because there's probably not gonna. I mean, I'm being honest. To do a intergenerational whatever that community center is probably. It's not, number one, it's not gonna fit within our policy, and number two, I think that the appetite for the taxes for something like that probably would be not there. So that I think is a longer term thing, right, which you could plan for. But this the Hinckley idea, I think you need to sort out this whether it's modular or prefab. I think you probably need to work with Mike and get go through the process, get whatever studies you need done, get a hard, bid, go through the bidding process, and then come to town meeting. I think you're a little bit too, my guess is you're probably a little bit too.
That's
early.
our policy,
Right.
that's our process, excuse me, that is outside of the schools, because those run through the state, and that's, we have to follow their process, because otherwise we don't get 30% of it back. So we always, the state basically sets the cost of the project at schematic design, which is the next step after feasibility, which is very early in the process. But the way we ran DPW to police and fire and the water treatment project down at Wheelock, the first step is feasibility. The second step is design, where they take it all the way through, and then it goes out for bids, and then we come back to the town with hard numbers.
So just to be clear, even though we've had the modular approved previously, and forgive me, like the processes are so complicated.
I think that, I think I know where you're going.
Confusion
I
was.
think, yeah,
was not.
the last year's article was to lease a module.
Right, okay.
So that's not, that's
So
different.
because we're talking about urgency,
That's-
that's why we.
Leasing.
That's why we weren't in front of it.
This is why.
So
we're not
the
trying-
modular approach is a Band-Aid, right?
It's
Like,
100%.
It's just dealing with the fact that FAP has fallen down and we need a home for you guys. And this is a quick way to get you into a space without, exhausting, years. So that's, I would say that's a 5-year plan, let's call it. Maybe you can stretch that to 10. The prefab approach, like I said, you could probably get good 20 years out of.
Yeah,
But where does that fall in line with, what's gonna happen eventually at Wheelock, what's gonna
Yeah.
eventually happen at Memorial?
I mean, our fear, so I have 2 comments. One is, just want to be clear, we were not trying to bypass process.
Oh, we know, right.
It was
Yeah.
because
Don't worry
we
about
just assumed,
Yeah.
I did not realize we needed to do a feasibility study for a prefab modular, whatever you want to call it. So that's problem number 1. Number 2, we're very, I want to be thoughtful with my words, which is not always my strength. Okay. We don't want to build something so nice that the town will never build us a building. Do you know what I mean? We don't want to have such a nice prefab that then that's it, we're done.
There's a risk no matter what you build,
But
that's the case.
That being said, I would much rather, like, we are willing to take on some of the debt ourselves, and we are willing to transfer funds that we've allocated to other capital projects towards this. We're not trying to cost the town more money. I mean, we want to be revenue generating additive for the town. But so we're willing to take on some of the debt, but I would rather take on the debt going towards something that's our own space versus continuing to pay rent. So all that being said, like, apologies for not getting the feasibility study. I did not know that we needed to do that for like a prefab or modular. So
This is where it gets into the gray area.
Yeah.
Like I said, modular, you don't need a feasibility
Yeah.
study. It's a temporary fix for your situation. So that doesn't worry me at all.
okay,
If we're talking about building foundations and reconfiguring a site, that's construction, that's full on construction. We need to be part of that.
Yeah.
And like I said, and as Steve asked about the existing feasibility, what it takes to get us over the finish line, something like that, I don't think it's a heavy lift. But our policy is that any major capital project that's a permanent structure, that we go to the town with hard numbers, that we're not going in and saying, we think it's gonna cost this, and then it doesn't, then we gotta go back and ask for more money. And
wait,
the town feels
like what happened to us exactly last year? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't want that again either. So for this, as we see from the proposal that Nick got, would you consider this more of a permanent structure or more
Yes,
of a modular?
because it
Okay.
requires a foundation,
Okay.
it'll require site work, it'll require utilities.
Right.
More than just bringing in overhead wires, you're talking about bringing in sewer, water. That said, it doesn't need to be an extensive process. I mean, if you ask the town this year for design funds for that, then we could roll into a design and get hard numbers for next year.
Did we not
Potentially,
do
that's
the
kind of tight, but
feasibility?
I probably shouldn't say that without talking to my committee.
We could.
Did we not just use the feasibility money that we have allocated already towards this? I mean, we.
That wouldn't be enough to design
A prefab.
a prefab because, 100 grand will get you a very basic feasibility study. It won't get you through design. I can tell you that you're gonna need.
Even for prefab. This is breaking my brain. That's crazy.
Welcome to my world.
I'm in the wrong business.
But you do have the money from last year that you could reallocate.
Okay,
You have $160,000 to lease the modular. So
so
we
should that
could,
be our warrant
could-
for,
you could reallocate the funding to do design. If you want to do
I
prefab.
mean, I don't think you're, I don't check in. It's tough. I haven't done a lot of prefab in my business, so I don't know exactly where they draw the line between. My sense is that we would need a structural engineer to design a foundation. We would need a civil engineer to design the site work. We would need engineers to make sure we've got the right electrical and water and sewer services. Even if the prefab manufacturer absorbed the design cost of the structure,
Yeah.
that's from foundation up only. So there's still a lot of parts and pieces to it.
Yeah.
So
But if the prefab is a 10 to 20 year solution, you're not going to get a community center. Right?
you're not, because what's gonna end up happening is, and I've seen this in multiple towns, they do it a lot with schools, is they put a prefab or a modular classroom on to fit a surge in population, and it sits there. It was supposed to be there for 10 years and it's there for 30. And by the end, it's falling
Like Big Dale.
like, for instance. Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I fully understand the predicament you guys are in. And, I support you, and Parks and Rec was a huge part of my kids' life growing up. And, I think it'd be a shame to lose that. But if we did a prefab at Hinkley, that's probably it for till, ways down the road.
So, having worked on this article last year and with you guys this year, the urgency was there for the temporary space, the short term. I don't want to necessarily dismiss that with the prefab conversation. Probably need more time and runway to put together something for design funds and prefab. But do you guys still feel like the urgency is there for the police and having some sort of space, even if it's not full 5,000 or more?
the problem is that if we don't have enough space to host at least one of our camps, it's a useless space.
Okay.
Right, so, and even one of our smaller kids, would still need space for 35 children, plus the counselors, plus the administrative offices, so that was the problem with the modular last year.
Okay, so
Its size is very important, so, obviously we need administrative space, I mean, but that, well, I don't want to diminish that. That is not the top priority. The top priority is being able to host at least one camp. We're heavily dependent on schools, and no matter what, especially after this conversation, we're always going to be dependent on the schools. I mean, this summer we're using Memorial, Dale, and Blake for our camps, and unless we get a 30,000 square foot building, we're always going to need the schools for our summer camp.
Which is some models.
Yeah, they've modeled that in the 2 studies ago, right? In 2016, it had a 25,000 square foot space. But that was the problem with the modular last summer, is that when they came back, we could fit it in with the price around, not close to the 165, but we could get the price down, but then it wouldn't be enough to actually host
One of the
even
Yeah.
the smallest camp. So it's we're between
It's less than 25 people.
we
Could be in there.
so if we get a smaller modular, then we're eliminating all these problems of, kicking our project down the road, but then it's useless for us.
Yeah.
Because
You're gonna need the
we need the
space
space,
for one
yeah.
of the camps, especially when Dale is under construction, right?
especially, yeah,
So you're gonna be down
yeah.
spot. So having a short-term option, modular, that has that capacity.
It's very important to us.
Yeah, might be the better ask.
Yeah.
even though it is more than the 165. So whatever the delta is there might be the ask in the warrant for at least two.
But it's
modular
like,
to
yeah,
get
that modular, like even just last year was like 600,000 and it didn't even have 25 people.
And that was to lease.
That was to lease.
So if you're gonna spend that money for 1 year, you may as well buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What was
mean,
the term of the lease?
it's timing too, though, right?
600,000 is a single year.
No,
No, it was with the option to buy. I think
Option to buy.
all back out.
Yeah.
I was thinking you're gonna be
It's exceeded.
down in 2 years, let's say.
Yeah.
Do it out of the water.
So what's a 2 to 3 year short-term option versus having to go down in camp because you'll be out.
We can't go down camp.
Right,
I mean,
so-
like the community, I mean, like that would be a disservice to the community. So, you know, thankfully the schools have been extremely generous. I mean, we cannot express our gratitude enough. And the UCC and COA, I mean, all have been so generous in helping us find a home and really is reflective of a community spirit, right? Like that we're all serving the same populations. So right now we can keep going with duct tape, bubblegum and dreams with the UCC and the schools, but that is just, it is not sustainable. It is just not.
You can't guarantee you that that space is gonna be.
Exactly.
Yeah, worry about
It
that.
won't- Yeah, that's the
Right.
problem. And it's also a
Yeah.
waste of our, like, we could be using that rent money for
Yeah.
something
And
that
the
is.
demand, and
I mean, it might-
the
it
camp
might-
demand.
I know, it's just timing.
It might make sense to, you know, I'm just talking out
Yeah,
loud
let's
here.
do it.
I don't know what the best approach is, but one approach could be, you know, you take a pause at this town meeting and you work and try to
Right.
get something really nailed down for whether it's prefab or modular, you guys have to figure that out. But that that price range you mentioned is a lot different than 25 million, right? I mean, that, you know, 1 million and 1.3 million, whatever numbers
Yeah,
you were
and
throwing out
those,
there.
and those are just numbers.
That-
Like someone said, have some numbers, like they gave me some numbers. That's
Yeah,
what I'm showing. I know I'm in sales. It's never that number.
I mean, okay.
It's-
But what
it's
I'm
never that
saying
number,
is
right?
that price range
Right.
that would fit within our debt policy, including a Dale Street school. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The 25 million intergenerational is not gonna fit within our policy. I can tell you right now. If you put a Dale Street school in first, and then, you know, we're gonna be over that policy. So I think my suggestion would be to work over the next year to try to come up with something at Hinckley, if that's where you want it to be, that is, you know, is not, you
Right.
know, is something that will last more than, you know, 2 or 3 years.
Can I ask a follow-up question? I took the survey and I love Parks and Rec. I have
Thank
3
you.
kids that are doing it right now, so I would support you guys a lot. I assumed when I took the survey that you're considering Hinckley as a permanent location. I don't know why I had it in my head that maybe that wasn't an option, but can
We
you
put it
just
all out there. I mean,
clarify
those are all
Like-
of our, we just put in all of our properties.
Yeah,
Hinckley-
Because that would just help me like to assess this situation because I kind of agree with the point that if you're gonna put a 5,000 square foot module, not prefab down, then you are gonna have a harder time getting a real center. And so like, as much as I feel bad delaying anything, I think that you're better off waiting and going for maybe not the Cadillac, but like the nice wagon, you know, something in the middle there. And if you could build at Hinckley, I think you have a good story there because it's walkable, it's by the pond.
Right.
It gives you like a future, you know, and I'm not on the commission, but I just was curious if that was an option because I didn't know.
I mean, so it is
From a
not, we
building
put in all of our properties. The problem with Hinckley is that there are conservation restrictions around Hinckley.
Yep.
And you know, if we want to keep the pond, that's one thing. It's very expensive to actually fill the pond and use that space. But we did put it in there to see if there was like an appetite for it, and to also consider it as, you know, for the prefab. So, I mean, yeah, it could be. We could just, if we get a prefab, maybe in the future, if there's not an appetite for building, new building, maybe we add on to that prefab. I don't know.
Can do.
Right.
We did start when we did start the feasibility before it was paused. we looked at Bath, we looked at Hinckley, we looked at the Sledding Hill, we looked at McCarthy, we looked at
Metacomet.
So there's been some evaluation of all those sites because of that process. The only probably real viable ones were Bath and Hinckley.
Okay.
The Sledding Hill and McCarthy are remote. People didn't like that. Especially the Sledding Hill. People love the Sledding Hill, so that's like,
The utility problem's gonna be taken care of.
yeah, in theory. Yeah, hopefully it will. That'll all be resolved. Regardless, the Sledding Hill is kind of like,
It's not,
it's a national treasure around Medfield.
I get the sense that, I mean, people don't have an appetite for that, and, you know, the utility work would be taken care of, but then there's also major site work and.
Yeah, it's on a slope site.
And parking problems, I mean, and also like, you know, turning in and out of there is not the easiest.
But I know when we looked at it, one of the biggest complaints about that is its remoteness because kids couldn't ride their bikes there. They couldn't
Yeah,
ride.
I mean, I think that's valid, and the open space is gonna be a.
But also to the point of like location, when I did the survey, when my wife and I sat down, we were in the don't care group
Yeah,
because we don't care. We want the path of least resistance
Yeah.
to getting it. So like
Right.
if maybe that, like, I literally do not care
Yeah.
where one goes. We would much rather Parks and Rec have a permanent home.
thank you.
So, you know, because I mean, we got shut out of summer camp after 18 seconds. We got 3 of 7 weeks. It was really hard, you know. We sure did. You know.
Well, if it makes you feel any better,
It's like getting Taylor Swift tickets.
It felt like
Sells out in a heart.
it felt like
if it makes you feel any better, I was out of the country, so I missed the window and I did not get it. So, and I like, that's half of my lifetime. No. But fair is fair, so.
but to that point, like, we
Yeah.
really don't care where it's gonna be.
Can we, for the purposes of today, I'm sorry, can we regroup after this with you guys and we've got a hearing on the 31st?
I mean, is the right thing to just ask
And
to
the same-
reallocate the money from the modular last year to
Feasibility.
feasibility for the prefab, not for the future building. I
We
mean,
do that, but I think what Jill's trying to say is she thinks you have a more urgent need.
Yeah.
Why don't, I
That
tell you
that
what,
was the history of it, and I just think, we learned a lot. tonight.
why don't we,
Take a breath.
why don't we do this? Yeah, I think it's a great idea. You're welcome to come back next week. But in the meantime, sort of sort through and rethink kind of what you want to do.
And the needs, yeah, short term.
Yeah.
long term.
And, you know, I mean, I think there's enough, Christine can help you too, and Mike,
Answer any questions.
Be worth looking at.
yeah,
A
yeah.
little bit more.
It just sounds, I don't want to rush it. It
Yeah.
sounds like you need to kind of just process it a little bit more, and think through what you want to do. Because I think this group think here is not going to help you.
Yeah.
We've done a good job thus far, but maybe it's time to,
And we have like 40 articles. we
Yeah,
have to
no,
go
that's fair. I thought yeah.
could we do the 6th if the 31st doesn't work? With us
Yeah.
having it holding it,
Yeah.
so it gives us 2 weeks.
That would be the latest, though.
We've got a lot to do anyway, so whatever works.
Okay,
And why don't we can touch base and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, thank you.
thank you very much.
Sorry, we do have more. I'm sorry, missed the memo.
No, no, no.
Feasibility study. It's one of those
You didn't
things.
do
I thought by
You didn't do anything wrong.
I thought by prefab we were bypassing the process, honestly. So, yeah, I mean, now maybe we just talk about, I don't know.
We can.
Build it something.
And doing them too.
Let's do it right.
Yeah, because that 5 to 10 year window, we should look at that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, what's that? Yeah, only through 2 articles. It'll be a long
So
day.
it's always a big topic.
All right, so the next article is the opt-in specialized stretch energy code, and Hilly, and you're bringing and Emily. Nice to meet you, Emily. Yeah, so please join us. Sorry you had to wait through all those discussions, but
We've learned a lot.
yes. Um,
So
So-
thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And you said you were gonna give us 10 minutes, so
well,
try to be very respectful.
well,
of
we,
the-
no, we will, that's not a hard rule, right?
I know,
But
but-
we,
11.
but, we do have a lot to get through. I do want to try to, stop discussion of other articles and at some point move to the override discussion, because that tends to take up a lot of our time. But, so as background, maybe the way to do this is give us an overview of the article, and then I think I sent around some questions, and thank you for doing, getting responses to those. I do have some follow-up questions, but, and I'm sure other members have questions, but, I before you start, I just want to say, I think what your committee does for the town is fabulous. You really save a lot of money for the town, and you've been doing it for a number of years now. So I know, kudos to you. Everybody should know that these guys really make an impact.
Well, it's not our charge to make money for the town, but it's a byproduct of doing good energy policy. So
Yeah,
that's really what our charge is. To
Yeah.
look at energy efficiency and.
right. So why don't you tell us about this particular article, and give us kind of a background, and take 10-15 minutes.
Would you want to start with the PowerPoint? Or?
Yes, I think that would be, so we have a short.
Cause I have it
PowerPoint.
on here, but I'll just follow,
Yeah, let me.
Should I tell you? I'll share it.
No,
and then
If you haven't seen the PowerPoint, I did watch it this afternoon, very good. Is that the one you're gonna show?
Yeah.
So if you haven't.
I did watch your
it's
Medfield
15
TV.
minutes.
I'll give you a shout out.
Yes,
That's-
so before we go, we sent out some resources. There's a small public service announcement that we made about a 15-minute interview on
Yeah.
Medfield TV.
Yeah.
And we have a long FAQ on our website. So if you had a chance to look at that, that should answer most of your questions probably. I didn't make it as a handout because you can easily access that on our website. And so the short presentation we have leaves a lot of things unsaid because there's so much to say. We thought that would be a good introduction to it.
Okay. Well, I'm Emily Lowney. I haven't met most of you before, and this is Billy Casasa. We're members of the Medfield Energy Committee. We wanted to discuss the upcoming warrant article for town meeting on the specialized energy code. And I think it was possible that Kelly Brown from Department of Energy
She's still there, yeah.
she might be on too in
Yes,
case there's
I
any
got
questions
to.
at the end. She's
Yeah.
very knowledgeable. But the specialized code is required by statute, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 25A, Section 6, to help achieve Massachusetts greenhouse gas emission limits and building sector sublimits set every 5 years from 2025 to 2050. As a result, all compliance pathways under the specialized code are designed to ensure new construction that's consistent with a net zero Massachusetts economy in 2050, primarily through a combination of energy efficiency that in turn enables reduced heating loads and efficient electrification. Use of fossil fuels such as gas and propane or biomass is permitted, but comes with additional requirements for on-site solar generation and pre-wiring for future electrification of any fossil fuel using equipment. Next slide. Consistent with our charge to look at energy use and for ways to increase energy efficiency and associated cost savings, we find that this building code ticks all those boxes. Only fully electrified buildings have a pathway to becoming fully net zero. They've been recognized as an essential part of the plan for achieving the state and local net zero 2050 goal. The specialized code encourages building electrification. It's easier and cheaper to build or prepare a building for full electrification during planning and construction rather than later in a retrofit. Many see this code as a consumer protection against needed expensive retrofits. The Energy Committee is conscious of the fiscal demands on the town, and adoption of the specialized code paves the way to become a climate leader community with access to future funding of municipal capital projects.
Next slide. I wanted to take a really quick moment to talk about town finances. Oh, that's a weird looking slide. And the opportunity for grant funding. The Energy Committee is very proud of the fact that it was pointed out earlier tonight that Parks and Rec is also earning the town money, but also the Energy Committee. Over the past 18 years, the Energy Committee has facilitated $924,000 in outside funding for needed capital improvements. The town's contribution to these projects was less than half of that at $411,000. And the annual savings from these investments are close to the town's overall contribution at $399,000. When you factor in the future costs saved with energy efficiency upgrades and solar projects, the estimated total benefit to the town to all these projects is close to $10 million. And this figure does not yet include solar canopies at the schools that have been built. The figures at the bottom of this slide also detail specifically the green community portion of these projects were funded. Next slide. The Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources has established this new Climate Leader Communities program, the next level of the Green Communities program, which will give additional funding and privileges to communities that have adopted the specialized code. The certified climate leader communities can apply for up to $1.15 million out of a total of $60 million set aside by the Commonwealth. Last year, the first 4 communities received $3.7 billion in grants between them. Adoption of the specialized code is required for climate leader communities and would show that Medfield is invested in supporting climate action for the purpose of future grant applications. Medfield has already completed most of the prerequisites to become a climate leader, as you can see from the list with the check marks. And we're on our way to working on our municipal decarbonization roadmap as well. Next slide. As of March of this year, 57 communities in Massachusetts, covering 32% of the population, have already adopted the specialized code. 28 of these are certified climate leader communities already. And we should also bear in mind that Medfield will be sharing the new energy manager position with Sharon and Norwood. Both these communities have already adopted the specialized code and implemented it in 2024. We actually spoke earlier today with the assistant general manager from Norwood, Mike Rosen, and he said that he would welcome if the 3 towns that will now be sharing this new energy manager could be on the same playing field in this area. Now, before we go into the technical details of what is the specialized code, we wanted to start out, sorry, next slide, with a question. Well, how would this actually affect us here in Medfield? And it's important to note that no existing homeowners would really be affected by this because the specialized code applies only to new construction. It does not apply to renovations, additions, alterations, or historic homes. And further than that, even if a new home is built in Medfield, it is built to be all electric, that would be treated exactly the same under the specialized code as how it would be treated today. Next slide. So then we list what groups in Medfield would actually be affected by the specialized code. Home buyers of new homes would be protected under the specialized code from costly retrofits in the future, because as we transition away from fossil fuels, it's much more cost effective to build a new home that's prepared for that transition than to go back and attempt to retrofit the home in the future. Secondly, as we mentioned before, the specialized code is a step we can take to further state and town goals of reaching a net zero economy in the future. In addition, and importantly, we have this opportunity to apply for the significant additional grant funding as a specialized code community under the Climate Leaders Program. And furthermore, the Massachusetts School Building Authority is offering a 3% incentive on new all-electric schools. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, new homes that are built all electric.
3% of what?
Cost.
Yeah, for the new school.
Just on that point, I'm sorry to interrupt, but my understanding is that if we don't adopt the specialized code, we could still get that, be eligible for that 3% MSBA reimbursement. It's not dependent on.
No.
Is that correct, Mike? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it also means to say if we want to access this money, we do an all electric school. then the specialized code would not have any effect on that. It wouldn't increase the cost. Because, it's an all-electric school that already complies with the specialized code.
Yeah, I was referring to the 3%.
I know, but
SBA
it's a
incentive.
reverse argument. Like if somebody were to argue with adopt the specialized code, it would increase the cost of the school. It does.
That 3% is enough to. Is the difference, that's the incremental cost of making it all electric.
I
In the video I saw this afternoon, you said the savings from utility costs will offset the incremental debt.
that is taken. Well, that is taken from a presentation from our last iteration of the school that Arrow Street did to the select board.
Yes.
Where they looked at different scenarios and they found that a net zero ready school would, so if the additional debt that you would take on, the savings would cover the extra debt
That's
payment plus some operating.
So that 3%, is that enough for the incremental cost? No, it's not. No. So.
Okay, well,
All right.
I'm sorry we interrupted you, but
Yeah.
we continue, yeah.
Did you finish it?
No, I was trying to refine this. I know I talked about the 3% because we did talk about that. If a home is built all electric under the specialized code, there's no additional requirements. But if the home is built to use mixed fuels, which means like any gas or propane for heating or cooking, there could be additional costs to pre-wire the home and add solar. And then for large multifamily projects, there are different requirements. Must follow the passive house pathway. And again, renovations, historical buildings not affected, so no impact on the state hospital project. Now, Medfield is currently operating under the stretch code. You may all already know this already. It adopted in 2016, and the stretch code gets automatically updated when the state updates regulations. The specialized code is an appendix to the stretch code and has some of the same provisions, meaning it would also be subject to future updates alongside the stretch code. Next slide. The specialized code, I've already referenced it earlier too in different slides. It's pretty simple. In the case of building a brand new mixed fuel home, you would have to pre-wire all appliances in the home for future electrification, and you would have to install some solar. And mixed fuel, the term refers to like any propane, oil, or gas used in the home for heating or cooking. But if the home is built to be all electric, it's already compliant with specialized code and does not have to have solar or pre-wiring. For the sake of time, we won't delve further into the requirements for residential homes, but we did note that the Warrant Committee had voiced concerns about the cost. And in some of the materials that were provided, there are resources with information on the cost of electric home versus mixed fuel, and it's been shown that it's costs less to build an all-electric home. Also, other specialized code communities have reported no drop in residential development. Some have actually noted an increased rate of development. For larger homes, there are the additional requirements that the home be either all electric or net zero energy. And for large multifamily, they must be built to passive house standards, which is a separate third-party verification process to build highly energy efficient buildings. Next slide. And on the new school, if the specialized code is adopted, it will also apply to the new school. The code seeks to promote electrification within buildings, but does allow the use of fossil fuel. The Energy Committee has no official role and thus no control over what the school building committee decides for the design of the new school and whether it utilizes fossil fuels or not. However, it is the hope of the Energy Committee that the town would opt to move forward with an all-electric design, which offers the highest standards in indoor air quality and thermal comfort for the best learning environment. Just like the specialized code aligns with the town's net zero 2050 goal and our climate action plan, so would an all-electric school. And also note, we just wanted to note that in 2024, the town was honored
by green communities for achieving 20% reduction in municipal energy usage since 2017. And earlier this year, the Energy Committee facilitated a presentation by Eversource to the School Building Committee to inform them early in the process on potential additional funding sources for an all-electric school, some of which are listed here on this slide. As a final note, I just wanted to point out that many students report consistently high levels of stress and anxiety and feel that climate change is a problem left on their shoulders by previous generations. Visibly choosing to build a net zero healthy building that works to diminish carbon emissions and deliver a livable planet for our youth shows the students of Medfield that their mental and physical health is a priority rather than only making decisions based on economics. Students, staff, and residents will take pride in the strategic decision to prioritize not only economics, but other factors as well.
All right.
And with that, thank you for taking the time to hear us tonight. Let us know if you have questions.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I have some follow-up questions, but I'll let everybody else ask their questions first.
I just had a question on the grant that's available. What is the purpose of the grant? 1.15.
It could be different things.
Yeah, so the 150,000 would be a technical, like for studies, set aside, and then the million could go to actually the project itself. And yes, the purpose is to fund any kind of energy efficiency or decarbonization projects, including solar, battery, I think EV.
Yeah, here's a list here. Any heating and cooling projects, energy management services, or local energy generation on municipal owned property.
And it should also be noted, compared to the current project, the program that we're under, the Green Communities. The Green Communities only funds upgrades in existing buildings. So the climate leaders can be applied to new buildings.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I've got all this correct in my head. So there's what we're calling this climate leaders program. And then there's the lead by example, right?
I think that's just a concept.
Okay, but they give out grants, right? Lead by example. Grants.
I'm not familiar.
I'm not familiar with
the research I've done is that we could get money from that program. Lead by example.
Administers that?
DOER.
Can we ask Kelly about this?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Budget promoter.
Sure.
Hello, Kelly. Can you unmute there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you
I
now.
had my hand raised as soon as you asked about the leading by example. It's a really good question. So at the Mass Department of Energy Resources, we have multiple different divisions. The Green Communities Division is tasked with working directly with municipalities, while we have the Climate Leaders Program and the Green Communities Program. The Leading by Example program that you're referring to actually works with state agencies, all the state colleges and so on in state buildings. So it is a division at DOER, but the programs that they work on, the funding that they provide is for state agencies and state colleges.
Okay. And maybe you could answer some of these questions. My understanding is that you don't publish any maximum client leader grant amount, that the 1.15 million figure is not in that link you provided. I couldn't find it in that link that you provided. So I'm just curious, like where's that number coming from?
Well, there is a billion and then 100,000.
Because the research I've done shows that the average grants are more in the they're in the 5 to 10. Sorry, the pool is 5 to 10 million per year. It's not the 60 million number that you're
so when we announced the Climate Leaders Program back in actually the very end of 2024, and we announced our first round of climate leaders in 2025. The $60 million has been set aside. And as Emily kind of pointed out, there's $150,000 for technical assistance to help you identify projects, and then $1 million in accelerator grants. So what we have is 2 individual program opportunity notices, and I'm happy to provide the links to both. And that would be where you'd see the $1 million, the types of projects, as well as the $150,000. It's in 2 separate applications because we want to give flexibility to climate leaders to be able to apply for them at different times.
Okay.
So if you added up the 60 million, it's $8.5 million towards technical assistance at the $150,000 per applicant, and then $52.5 million for the accelerator grants at the $1 million.
Is any of the lead by example money in the 60?
No, the leading by example is a completely different division with different programs and different funding.
Okay. So is there such a thing as a climate leader grant, or is it
It
called
is the
something else?
accelerator grant.
It's the accelerator grant. Okay.
Yep, that's the 2 grants I just talked about. So just to kind of give some background, when Medfield became a green community, they had access to the green communities grants. They received a designation grant for becoming a green community, and then have had access to competitive grants after that. So similar to that, Medfield is working on trying to become a climate leader. Once certified a climate leader, you'd have access to those 2 grant opportunities that Emily and Hilly was talking about that gets up to the $1,150,000.
Okay. I couldn't find. Okay. So it's called the accelerator grants. Got it.
That's the $1 million. And then there's the
That's
technical assistance. That's the $150,000.
Okay. Got it.
And they're
All
both located on combis.
All right. And then these first 4 town examples that you cite, Winchester being one of them, there's like 3.7 million. Were any of those lead by example grants?
Nope, that was the first round of climate leader grants. Leading by example grants is completely separate division. Those were the climate leader accelerator grants, up to $1 million.
Okay.
Some of the communities came in for the full $1 million, and there's a couple that came in for less, depending on what they were asking for.
So
Do I understand this correctly, that as a town, we would never qualify for the lead by example?
Exactly, because leading by example, the program is tasked with working with and helping reduce the energy usage at state facilities and colleges and state buildings. It's not for municipalities. Municipalities work with the Green Communities Program and the Climate Leaders Program.
So can you provide us the list of those 4 towns, the breakout of that 3.7 million?
Yeah, there was a press release included in your packet that had it.
I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to look at it.
I can pull it up as well.
Okay. And then I had a question about the opt-outs. I wanted to just make sure I understood the statement that was made that we can opt out of this. So let's assume town meeting decides they want to opt into this. It's voluntary, right? So I want to understand this the answer you provided, that we can opt out anytime. And that's not what what are the, I guess the question is, my understanding is the only way you can opt out is to have another vote at town meeting, right? You can't just say I'm opting out.
No.
Town meeting has to say I'm going to opt out. Is that correct?
I think, if there was a desire to opt out, that would be subject to some discussion, and then the town would have to decide, probably at town meeting again. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes. So I think one of the questions that's always been asked is because of the building code and it changing, is communities have always, Medfield was one of them, when adopting the stretch code, said, what if down the road we would want to opt out? And that's always at the town's local control. Same process for opting in would be opting out. It would be putting on an article on a future town meeting to say, I thought I saw a question of going back to the stretch code. That would be an option, to opt out of the specialized code and go back to the stretch code if the town chose at a town meeting.
Now, what happens if we get grant money while we're opting in, and then a year later we say we want to opt out? Do we have to give that money back?
Nope. So similar, it's the same process as being a green community. So if you chose to decide not to be a green community, the 660,000 that we've given you in grant funding was all given and awarded at the time of Medfield being a designated green community. That would apply the same way to climate leaders. You'd be awarded, you're meeting the criteria, you're a climate leader. If down the road you chose to rescind the stretch code, the specialized code, then what would happen is you just wouldn't be eligible to apply for future grants. It would have no impact on the grant funding that you've already received as a certified climate leader.
Okay.
I have a question. Hi, Kelly, I'm Peter Michelson. How intense is the competition for this grant money? I mean, it's up to $1 million, 1.15 million. How many applicants are there, and how likely or unlikely is it that you would get $1 million grant?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So similar to the Green Communities Program, that 1 million that we're giving out is pretty much for becoming a climate leader. So it isn't competitive, actually. It's more that you have to kind of look at the list of projects, and there are certain types of projects which Emily and Hilly already went over that would be what you'd want to come in for funding for. But it's not competitive like the competitive grant program that Medfield has been applying
Make sure
for.
I understand that. Make sure I understand that answer. Are you saying that every town that adopts this specialized code automatically gets $1 million?
Up to $1 million is the way the PON is written.
Up to.
Okay. But they don't have to have a project. They just have to pass the code.
No, you have to have a project. So just to go back to your earlier question. Yeah, just to go back to your earlier question that might help answer the question you just asked. So the press release that we announced in November for the $3.7 million in climate leader funding, we gave out, it was Acton received $1 million to electrify their town hall. Ashfield received $870,872 for solar photovoltaics. Chelmsford received $1 million to put in and electrify 2 municipal buildings, and Watertown received $918,297 for canopy solar installations.
We teed up enough projects, $10 million.
Well, you had a section on deferred maintenance opportunities. We have not been able to look at any of those as the Energy Committee.
It's not hard to spend $5.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much.
Can I just
ask a question?
Yeah, can I just respond? So you said as soon as we pass the code, if we adopt it, there's also the roadmap that we're working on, and the select board and the school committee will have to approve that as the last step qualifying to apply for climate leader program.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I was gonna ask if the school building committee, the planning board, and the permanent building committee have reviewed this, and what's their stance?
I don't think they have.
I guess we haven't taken a formal position.
Because it seems like I would need to know that before I would take a position.
Yeah, at some point we have, I think Christine has circulated our materials to different boards, but we haven't really heard.
Is there, let me ask a different question. Is there urgency to doing it now as opposed to going through and getting the input of all these committees?
Well, the money is being awarded. That's all.
Right, I understand.
People continue to get into it, it does become more competitive. So
Right,
you know,
right.
better.
But there's money available if you're not in the program, right? You've demonstrated that. You've gotten a grant.
Well, yeah, but the Green Communities is very competitive. We have nearly 300 communities vying for what, $8 million or something.
Yeah.
And we didn't get our last Green Community grant because it is so competitive.
Are you saying this is not competitive?
No, but there's more money and fewer towns.
There were like a dozen towns, right?
For now, until everybody starts, it will become
yeah.
competitive, yeah.
And I mean, I just again want to point out, you know, you were asking about the Arrow Street plan, you know, the 20-year facilities plan. There's plenty of projects that could use a little bit support.
Yeah, through a competitive process to get that money.
But yeah, it takes. I mean, if we want to
apply for grant money, we need a couple of years first to look at do a technical study.
Yeah.
Maybe even apply for a technical grant there.
Yeah.
Look at the options, make a recommendation, and then, go for that project. So it's, it does.
Is there a reason?
No, go ahead.
There's 351 municipalities, right? And only a dozen have opted in or so. Is there a reason why everyone else hasn't? Or
no, just it's the new program. So of the 350 communities, about 300 are stretch code communities. And right now, 57 have adopted the specialized code because it's new. And there's like 28 or so that are certified climate leaders. So that's, they've completed the whole application process.
I had a question on what was the question? Oh, yeah, the specialized code applies. I think you made the statement that it's only for new construction. Maybe the person from DOR can confirm this. My research said that it does apply to certain additions and substantial renovations. That's in the.
That's the stretch code, the updated stretch code.
No, it really is confusing. I know
specialized code
because
is what I thought.
Repeatedly, it's people have gotten confused on whether it really applies to renovations, but it really doesn't.
Okay.
Right, Kelly?
Kelly, can you weigh in on that?
Yeah, so the specialized code only applies to new construction. The stretch code, if a resident pulled a permit today in Medfield, additions and renovations are under the stretch code that Medfield follows today.
But not the specialized. But if we were to adopt the specialized code, is there any chance that an addition or a substantial renovation would have to follow it?
Not the code today.
The only example that we've discussed is, what if a home was completely destroyed by fire and it was being rebuilt? Is that a new construction or is that a renovation of an existing home? And that's the only thing that I found confusing, where it's like, well, there could be, if the home was being built a different size, it would be ultimately up to the building commissioner to decide if this is a new home or an existing home. But nothing like I'm going to put an addition on my home, nothing like that.
Okay. Any other questions by people on this?
Is there any downside? I mean, all the pros of savings, etc. Are there any cons?
I've talked to a number of representatives from other towns, and I have without fail heard there was a lot of doubt and anxiety and questions beforehand, and once it passed, it was a non-event. So I have asked about the residential development and commercial development, and there's no impact, no change that anybody has reported.
I mean, it seems to me we have a.
I would disagree with that.
Well, if I have not found numbers for that.
Does this not
I can show you some.
does this not make building more expensive?
I would say that if you're going to build a mixed fuel home, and you're going to have to add solar, that's an additional cost. So that's those limited cases.
Yeah.
Most people, my understanding is most people end up deciding to build all electric when they're in a specialized code community, and that's what they want.
The where I come down on a lot of this, a lot of this stuff is smart to do, and we've demonstrated as a town. We've figured it out. We have very smart people on committees. We've done solar panels. We've done all sorts of smart, energy efficient things. But nobody mandated that we had to do it. We just did it, right? And so my concern here is we have one of the largest projects ever the town's ever done, and I would like to know, like Emily said, whether they're on board with this, and do they agree that it doesn't cost more money? And I think we owe that to the town to go through that process and learn and understand, get everybody, talking about it, rather than leading with something that not everybody's on board with. We don't know, let's put it that way, in terms of the experts in these committees. And they're going through a process now where they will, they will look at doing all these real smart things that you guys support, that are good, energy efficient ideas. And they may decide to do all that without having a mandate, right? I mean, that's the reality. They might go through, but they'll have flexibility to deal with their decisions in our own environment. We won't have this state mandates that says you have to follow these 100 rules or whatever. I'm just, you understand what I'm saying. I just think that it's maybe we're going too quickly without involving more people. That's all.
Well, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg question for me too, because if you have access to expert grant funding, the $1 million, then it would make that electrification more feasible. If you decide to go electric and we are not part of the project of that program, then we don't have access to this. And yeah, I agree. We can't. I don't want to, preview what this the building committee is going to decide in the end. I can only cite, that the MSBA is seeing an increasing number of projects in the pipeline that are all electric.
That was my question.
Well, we got a guy right behind you.
Yeah, just build. It's not all electric because the town of Ashland decided to put in a backup boiler. It's a geothermal heat pump system. So it's an electrified system. The good thing is so far we haven't needed a backup boiler. Even this year, I think it may have gone once or twice when it was in the single digits, but that's it. So these buildings are, and I can speak to schools that we build regularly. Everybody's exploring it. Each town is making different decisions about what's important to them. I can tell you wholeheartedly, it does cost more upfront. But there's another concern that we're starting to discover as this push towards all electrification becomes an issue for towns, and that is maintaining them. In order to build these buildings that are becoming increasingly more complex, and facility staff at schools aren't capable of really maintaining them and managing them. So we're finding a lot of our clients are coming back to us and being like, this is great, our energy level is down to this level, but every time I need to get something looked at or an alarm goes off on a chiller, I have to call in a specialist because my facility staff have no idea how to run these increasingly complex systems. I'm not, casting judgment on that portion of it. I'm just saying this is another factor that as towns make some of these decisions that they don't think about when they're making them. And, what we decided to do as a town for the school, is up to the community and the committee charged with designing that. But oftentimes people don't factor that into. They think of it. There is an added upfront cost, which makes the price tag goes up, which makes it harder to get past through town meeting. And for a while, the MSBA hockey stick was, at this level, and now it's at the vertical level because there's schools that are almost $1,000 a square foot now, which is insane, because they're getting increasingly complex. So there's starting to be a little bit of pushback and at least a more measured approach to it. But I can tell you that it definitely costs more upfront. And then the other concern I would have is still, as we push as a state towards electrification, is we haven't yet seen the impact of what the impact of the grid is going to be. And we don't have the infrastructure to support that mandate yet, which means that's the next wave that's coming. And that's going to drive up electricity rates. If electricity rates go up, the payback period gets longer. So I'm not casting a judgment on what it is or isn't best for it, but what I can tell you is that these are the challenges that people often don't think of when making some of these decisions that I think it's important for our town to at least consider in making that decision.
Hey, Brent, I know you are remote, but we want to give you a chance to ask questions, particularly since you spent time on this article. So,
Well, I think you asked the right question, so I appreciate the input just now. Since that's also my concern. I guess if I had a question, it would be understanding a little bit more the distinction between adopting the specialized energy code and becoming a climate leader community, because they're not completely, adopting the specialized energy code is necessary, it's not sufficient, right? There's that final checkbox, if I recall correctly, was a roadmap to full decarbonization. And I'm just very concerned because when I read the Aero Street report on all of our municipal buildings, and I look at what all the maintenance is that's required, it's a very large number. We all know that. And then if you look in the appendix at what it would cost to then retroactively make all those buildings, have no fossil fuels, it's a big number again. So and I don't know, and I was never really clear on whether we have to actually retroactively make all of our buildings fossil fuel free in order to become a climate leader community. Because if we do, I just don't think we'll ever get there. I just can't imagine spending that kind of money. We would have to wait for the buildings to fall down and rebuild them. But maybe that question can be answered.
So,
I will take that.
so no, the roadmap plan that is being considered right now is definitely a planning tool. It's an adaptable, flexible tool that should be getting updated regularly, probably every 3 years or so, to show changes in the facilities, changes in the technological advancement, and it's really more of a real planning tool for the town to decide what the next funding need is.
I just thought of another question. Let's say that what happens if we adopt a specialized code and then the state changes it? 2 years down the road, they add something to it.
You mean when they change it?
When they change
When
it,
they
yes,
change it,
yes.
yeah.
Our only option then is to opt out of it, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're at the mercy of whatever the state decides.
The same with the stretch code currently.
Yeah, but this is something where the stretch code, we have to follow that.
No, we don't have to.
Well, we've chosen to follow that.
Situation.
Yeah, we've chosen to follow that. We're already doing that, right?
But that's the way the codes work.
Yeah.
It's like the base, there's the stretch, which is X percentage of, above that.
Yeah.
And then the specialized is above that.
Yeah.
Right. And so as codes evolve, those requirements move down the pyramid, not up. So, so that's what used to be the stretch code is now it gets stricter as time goes on. It doesn't get more.
So we're already subject to it. What you're saying is some of the specialized stuff might be pushed down to the stretch.
Yeah, and some of the stretch code stuff that we're complying with now may be base code in the next go around.
Yeah. So why do we want to be at the top then if it's always going to get pushed down to us? I don't understand that, but okay. I think we're past our bewitching hour of we might have to, follow up with you later.
Okay.
But we appreciate you taking the time to educate us. It was helpful. Thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. And we'll follow up if we have more, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
All right. So I think we probably should, I think we probably should pause the rest of these articles for tonight.
Oh, yeah, Maria's still here.
Oh, Maria, I'm sorry.
That's
Oh, my
okay.
gosh. No, we can't. All right, no, we'll do you. Come on up, Maria. Come on up. Sorry, I forgot all about you. Thank you.
I have Teresa James
Yes.
joining us remotely. And Matt, do you want to join us for the sign? Sign bylaw?
Yes, thank you. No, thank you.
Maria, which one are you gonna start with?
Let's start with the sign bylaw because we have a quorum. The sign advisory board tonight. And the sign advisory board will need to call their meeting to order.
Oh, okay. Turn, okay. Meeting will come to order. John, present. Shannon, present. Jeff, Adam Clement, present.
Great. Do we have anyone else from the sign advisory board on Zoom? All right, perfect. And so Teresa is here representing the planning board, who is going to be the sponsoring agent bringing this to town meeting. And I feel like I know most of you guys, but I'm Maria de la Fuente. I'm the director of land use planning. And I'm going to be presenting two zoning changes for you tonight. First one is some miscellaneous updates on our sign bylaw, and the first one is really as it relates to illumination. We're being a little more specific with how we regulate backlit signs. And Matt, if you could provide some background on the logistics behind the change.
Sure. We currently backlit signs, internally illuminated signs are not allowed. So that's not going to change, but we're changing that section to add in the amount of light that can be shot onto the face of the sign. Currently, there's no regulation. So it's sort of a preemptive strike for us, so that no one gets the idea that they can shoot the sun at their sign. And we've worded it to have an average maintained illuminance of 3.5 foot candles. So there's an actual quantitative amount. So a sign basically can't be too brightly lit. And that would be not in compliance and then subject to zoning violation itself.
And the building commissioner is a zoning enforcement officer. So when the sign advisory board notices a violation or a potential violation, they will notify Dana, and then he will go out and notify the property owner in turn. So this actually gives us a very quantifiable way of measuring if someone's in violation or not. It's a little less murky.
It's not not necessarily currently a problem. So it's more, there's a lot of chatter about dark sky initiatives and lighting technology is advanced. So it's kind of a preemptive strike in that sense to make sure that it's appropriate continually.
And Teresa, do you have anything to add on behalf of the planning board for this portion of the article?
Just like to confirm that, we've had public commentary and opened it up and taken that in and support this motion going forward.
So then the next part that we are considering amending is section 13.8C. So article 13 of the zoning bylaws is our sign bylaw. And there is a section there for residential district signage. So if you see, there's a section that we have stricken out, and that is for the language that we use for home occupation or home businesses, such as like a home bakery or could be like a lawyer's, office. So we had a citizen's petition that you may or may not recall.
Yeah.
For someone who was who underwent a home occupation permit through the zoning board of appeals. So that's a special permit, so it still requires a hearing. And they were proposing to operate an honorary Austrian consulate out of the property. And our current bylaw reads that signage was limited or is currently limited to a 1-by-1 sign just with the name of the occupant and their profession, like John Smith Carpenter, and that's it. So this person was given a sign that was much bigger. It was 4 square feet in area, and didn't have just their name and occupation. It had, like a design on it. So it wasn't eligible under our zoning.
So they chose to bring forward the citizen petition, and to the planning board and the Senate advisory board, we decided that it's a little cleaner if it just comes through a board, instead of, as the official, instead of a citizen petition. So this is how we came up with this new language. So in essence, after we met with the Senate advisory board, we came up with, now you're going to be able to, if you have a home occupation, you will still need your special hearing. But now you may get a sign of up to 4 square feet total if it's applied to the surface of your house. So it's, much bigger than the 1 square foot. And then the Senate advisory board also wanted to consider freestanding signs, which were previously not allowed for a home business. So if you were to have a freestanding sign, then it cannot exceed a total sign area of 2 square feet. So that's like 1 and 1, and each face counts as, a separate instance. And the logic behind this is because if you have a freestanding sign, you can put it a lot closer to the property line, so it's more intrusive, and therefore the Senate advisory board felt that it had to be smaller. But if it's set back along with your house, then you could get a bigger sign. And some of this was to avoid the confusion of when you pull into a home business to pick up your cake. You hope that you're in the right house. If there's no signage. So just having a little something would make, I think, Medfield a little bit more business friendly while still keeping the intrusion fairly minimal. And we have 4,400 households here in Medfield. I get 3 of these requests a year. So it's not like it is a huge,
It was just, we put it under the magnifying glass because it's primarily in residential district.
Okay.
So you want, our thinking was, our experience is that, well, one of the things we've always been told is like less is more. And then especially in the residential district, like you don't want to have signs on everybody's front lawn.
Yeah.
And whatever. So we're trying to corral that to make sure that.
So did this solve Christian Donner?
Tailored to solve that issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
We
that's
wanted
a
to
nice,
just
that's
add-
a nice story.
We're very accommodating.
We
Well,
someone with a
they make
citizen
exclusions.
petition actually worked with a committee to come up with a solution. It's very cool.
I like to think that's the problem.
It's after 9. Is the sign here? I was looking for information.
No, it is
Oh,
not here. I wish. I was keeping an eye out for Chris. So we made sure we measured it exactly to make sure there was everything here conform to what he would like to propose. So we're, the planning board has this goal to make Medfield a little more business friendly, and then that's part of the next one too, to help promote some growth. So this is 13.8C amends the sign bylaw, and then the next change in the next page, you can see we're amending section or article 14 of the zoning bylaws, which is administration and enforcement. So this section is H2D, regulates home businesses. So I basically just, instead of paraphrasing everything we said on the first page, because that's dangerous to do in zoning. If you change one thing, you have to change the other, and things get tricky. We're just referring back to the actual sign bylaw itself. Okay. So it's just like, go read that. And everything here is just changing the language so that the punctuation makes sense.
Okay.
So it's very minimal. Yeah.
All of this doesn't deal with political signage, right?
No, that's different.
As an outside, and what about like, you have somebody doing work on your house with a sign out front and it's loopers, it doesn't touch any of that, or it does?
No.
These are mostly permanent.
Permanent.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
Okay, got it.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anything else to add from the Senate advisory board or from Teresa?
Thank you for. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry you kept waiting so.
Yeah.
So if we have, and the last section is, we're changing the table of use regulations to show the actual correctly. They've been wrong for a few years, so.
All right, good.
Yep. So if there is no further questions, then the Senate advisory board can join their meeting. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Very much.
That was easy.
Let's do more of those.
Yeah, we need like 30 more articles like that.
Great. So, next one up, we're gonna have, Doug Lawrence, present our mixed-use overlay district, overview.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for trying to make this quick. So yeah, just talking about a mixed use overlay district, this is something that the planning board's been actually working on for a little while. We tackled the MBTA Communities Act last year and we're excited to get back into this one. So real quick, just what are we talking about with mixed use? We're talking about commercial uses and residential uses in the same building, typically found in apartments above or condos, residential above first floor retail, which is a pretty historic development pattern in many towns. Commonwealth.
Next one.
So just a quick overview. So this is a zoning overlay. So it's an optional overlay for property owners and developers. It allows mixed use by special permit, which is reviewed by the planning board. And it maintains a number of existing design and development guidelines, including a 35-foot height limit. The historic review process is still in place, and we've defined some pretty constrained areas in town for mixed use, which I'll show you on the next slide. What it does not do is change the underlying zoning, require anything to happen, increase height or change parking standards or really change too much. It's really an optional overlay for developers or property owners to bring more commercial use and mixed use into downtown. It's really the goal. So like I said, the zoning remains the same. The property owner has an option, an additional option for development. Still has to come to the planning board for site plan review, so we can still look at all the things we look at relative to development properties. And it's just an optional opportunity for the owners.
What are the criteria that govern approval or denial of a proposal by a property?
Yeah, so we look at it's really impact, so height, things like parking and open space, issues like sound, lighting, odors, or infrastructure and things like that. So there's a really clear set of things that we look at from a special permit perspective, which is true for this. It's true for MBTA. It all goes through special permit at the planning board level. So it remains the same.
We have a defined set of 9 criteria set out in 14.15 for the planning board. So we have to make specific, like 9 specific findings in order to grant any special permit.
So this is the map, I think. So we took a close look at both the downtown area as well as the Shaw's, not just the Shaw's Plaza, but those commercial properties down on Route 109. So the hatched zones are the areas where this zoning overlay would be available. So, I mean, happy to answer any questions, but this was the area that we focused on.
And we touched base with Montrose because they're a giant property in relation to the parcel sizes in the downtown. And they were happy to be zoned for this in case they ever had any, different opportunities come up.
So that I see the 109 map there. That's the Shaw's.
Yes, that really large footprint. Yep. The green is Shaw's.
So that, and then the businesses to the left of that.
That's right. Yeah. And the office buildings behind.
The office buildings behind it. Okay.
And then that parcel is gas station.
Yeah. You guys have or have had requests of the state that the zoning would help?
So a few years ago, before I joined the town of Medfield, the planning board had a developer suggest a really lovely mixed-use project in the downtown. The planning board was really anxious to take them up on because it was going to be a really nice redevelopment opportunity, but we did not have zoning to accommodate for that. So we missed out on that. And it has been a big regret of the board to not have been prepared for that opportunity when it came up. And I think that was 2021. So in 2022, my predecessor started this process. She was going to propose it to town meeting at 2023, and then she left. So then I had MBTA and other shenanigans after fired. So we are here now in 2026, bringing this forward. So we have at least missed out on one good opportunity, and I know there's a lot of parcels in the downtowns that could potentially benefit, like the laundromat. That's a single story building. You could add a second story, and we're very big focus on public amenities, like a little place where you can have lunch, or like a mini pocket park. Like we have certain amenities that we ask the applicant to meet if you're going to redevelop under this. So you should beautify the town for everyone too. Next slide.
So yeah, to Maria's point, we just grabbed a few illustrative examples of towns around us that have done projects. So these are the kinds of things we're talking about, 2 stories with recessed dormers, retail on the first floor, some residential mixed in, really infill properties that we can kind of create a little more vibrancy and diversity of retail and residential environments downtown. So just to give you a sense of the kinds of things that have happened in other towns, just keep cruising through this, but 1 to 2, 3-story kind of infill development with retail and residential above, or things like that. That's what we're after. Even renovation projects, restoration projects that create these kinds of uses, just to create that zoning opportunity for property owners in the areas that we specified. One of the things obviously is diversifying the tax base. So we want to create opportunities for more commercial use, the traffic, all the things that vibrant downtowns are all about, is a big part of what we're trying to accomplish.
And I had a conversation with the owner of Noon Hill Grill, who just was seeking to understand what was the letter he got in the mail and what does it do. So he thought it was going to be a really great idea. Obviously, maybe it's not applicable to his specific property because of the lot configuration, but he was already starting to think of lots that would benefit and property owners that he knows that could act on this. So he seemed excited about this. And something else too is like, this is a way of developing the town that doesn't actually encroach on environmental resources because you're building up.
And so this is what you call overlay. So any in any other, so how would it work with like historic type rules?
So we have a historic district commission here in the downtown, and then historic commission, which regulates buildings over 50 years of age. So where it's an applicable jurisdiction that they already retain, they would need to secure approval through them first. So by the time that it comes to the planning board, I would need to see a copy of the approvals along with the application materials to make sure that if there's any conditions that need to be met, and the planning board can reference them in their own approval.
But that stays in place.
It stays in place,
Okay.
Because there's a lot of consideration for our historic downtown.
Yeah.
Something you just said confused me, or maybe it was just me not understanding. You said this wouldn't apply to Noon Hill Grill. Noon Hill Grill wanted to just go straight up.
They could. They said like they have no interest in the short term.
Right.
But they could theoretically put apartments up there if they wanted to.
Because you said something about land configuration. If they just go straight up, there's no problem.
Well, where are they parking for the apartments? Wasn't worth their concern.
But they could.
But they could, yeah. That would be something they would.
Within the height limits of the zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and then just importantly, and I think this is important for people to understand, particularly at town meeting, what's the difference between this and the MBTA Communities Act. So the MBTA was just about housing and was not optional, at least as we considered it. And this mixed use overlay district includes commercial use. So it's creating that additional opportunity for commercial. So they're separate, kind of like a choose your own adventure opportunity. And importantly, mixed use overlay was initiated by us, and we're able to shape it a little bit more than the MBTA.
And for in order for people to activate this overlay, you need to have commercial and housing. You can't just do commercial. You need to have at least like one apartment.
Okay.
So it is truly like a mixed use. You have to have mixed use to, or proposed mixed use to qualify. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
And why we think it's a good idea, like we talked about, it's really about infill. It's not about large development. Any large development that would take advantage of this would happen down on 109, just because the area of downtown, or something like Montrose, which I think is a much longer term. But the downtown's really focused on smaller infill sites, which I think would be good. Creates more diversity of housing types, apartments over retail, which we don't have a lot of in town. It sets these design standards that I think we would be able to control, and the diversification of commercial property. So these are the few reasons that we think it's a good idea.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. So will you, one quick question, at town meeting, you'll give a presentation on this, right?
Yeah.
I think you're
Probably
one
not
of the,
much.
you're one of the few people who get to do a presentation at town meeting.
If the moderator thinks it would be appropriate.
Well, you're required by law to give a planning board report.
Yeah.
And then the moderator will determine whether or not to be a president.
Oh, okay, okay. I meant the
By law, you
report,
have
yeah.
to give
The report you have to
report.
give,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Very organized, good presentation.
As usual.
Thank you.
Guys. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
Yes. So we're done, right?
Yeah, there's nothing left to talk about, right? All right, so we're gonna switch now. I think it's safe to switch. It's 9:15. Sorry, guys. To the override discussion. So I thought before, just to frame all this, I thought before we go through the budget scenarios, I think it's important just to frame what's in front of us tonight, and that's, the Warrant Committee has always approached budget discussions with a clear set of principles: fiscal responsibility, transparency, proportionality, and sort of long-term sustainability. Those are sort of, the things we've always focused on. And they've guided past committees. I know they've guided the committees I've been on. And so they've guided town meeting, and they have guided the working group's efforts over the last several weeks. So what we're going to talk about tonight is it's not just a number or a target. It's a recommendation that reflects a full set of constraints that were given, acknowledging the service impacts that we're trying to avoid, and the longstanding proportionality that has sort of defined the budget process for more than a decade. So I think that, we'll talk about this compromise scenario. And it's, there was a lot of deliberation that got put into it, and we'll try to walk through that. But it stays under the 2 million override ceiling. It keeps the tax impact below the 884 threshold, and it balances, it maintains the 75-25 proportionality that past warrant committees have consistently recommended, and that town meeting has repeatedly approved. We have 10 years of history that supports that. So it's not just a pattern in the data, it's the pattern in what I call our governance. So when we stay within those guardrails, we reinforce predictability, transparency, and when we go outside of them, we risk losing the alignment of boards and committees and residents. That's sort of, my view of it. And so, I'll walk through. Can you put the presentation up? Oh, you got it up. Sorry. So the first slide is our shared principles. I think I just kind of talked about a lot of this. We want something that aligns with our fiscal principles and maintains trust with residents. Next slide. Sorry, go back to where we left off. Yeah, where we left off. So, okay, just to level set everybody, we we reviewed the full range of department scenarios at our last meeting. After deliberation, we went through those, and we basically narrowed it down to two viable options: the 3.9/2.8 scenario and the 3.5, 2.6 scenario. Those were selected because they represented a balanced, you know, they reflected what we thought an appropriate override size amount was, and what the right tax impact was. And we thought they had sustainability, you know, over a number of years. And the process was, you know, it was, you know, you all know we went through a prudential process. So what we took that to the working group, and then the next slide is what the working group agreed on. The working group aligned quickly on the core constraints. The override is everybody agreed the override is necessary in order to avoid deep service reductions. The override should be below 2 million, and the tax impact should be below 884. And that sort of shaped what we did after that. Those constraints shaped sort of the iterations that we went through. Where they diverged, the next slide, we had differences of opinion on what proportionality would be. Specifically, the school-town split under both warrant committee scenarios that were put forward. The school shares rose in 27 and 28. And historically, that share has been remarkably stable, roughly 75-25 for a decade. So the concern, it wasn't just about the absolute dollars, it was about maintaining proportionality that residents expected, and that has guided our budgets for 10 years. Next slide. So why this 75-25 split matters. It's, you know, like I mentioned before, it isn't just a pattern in the data, it's a pattern in our governance. It's, you know, for over a decade, you know, we've dealt with that split. That's how the budgets have come out. If you remember, 2 years ago, when we sort of changed our approach to doing budgets, we implemented a policy, a practice that said for incremental revenue, we were going to split it 75-25, right? And we've been doing that for the past 2 years. And so the stability, you know, is important. You know, it's just as important as town meeting. That's they've repeatedly voted for budgets that have been within those guardrails. It isn't just theoretical. It's what I call a community validated one. And so it's a shared expectation that people have across committees and boards and residents. It's part of the fiscal culture of the town. You know, we do something for 10 years, that's kind of a pretty long time. So, you know, this was what came out of the working group, and it's that we suddenly we're moving, the approach that we brought to them was moving away from that long history and a proposed scenario that shifted the balance towards the schools. And we risk losing that alignment that we've worked hard to build for the last 10 years. You know, I think this is a time when we need all people, all groups, the schools, the town departments, the warrant committee, the select board, the school committee. We need everybody and residents pulling in the same direction. So proposing something that breaks from this historical proportionality, I think, could make getting consensus harder and could complicate the path to successful override. Sort of, you know, these are my views, but so this compromise scenario avoids that. It keeps us within the longstanding guardrails that the town meeting endorsed. And I think it maintains that trust and predictability that residents expect. So next slide, why was it necessary? I can go through this with you. I have some details to show you later, but it basically, it created upward pressure on the school share, right? So well, you can picture if you're growing school budgets at a greater percentage than the town budgets, their share of the overall budget is going to increase. It's just math, right? That's the way math works. So, so, you know, we needed to come up with some balanced approach, and a middle path was needed. So this one met the constraints. It stayed within the $2 million override amount. It was below the 884 tax impact. So next slide. This is the scenario we came up with, which was the 364 and the 333. Again, it sits between the two scenarios that this committee sent to the working group. It maintains the proportionality. It keeps the override under 2 million, and it's got a tax impact of 874. I will say this: not everybody is happy. We can't, so that may be a good thing if everybody's not happy. So, this was what I thought was the best path to getting people. Nobody's happy. Both town and schools are not happy, but they would like something different. But I think this is the best path to move forward. And
So I think you may have just about answered the question that was on my mind.
Yeah.
Is there buy-in on this from the town and school? Or not yet?
Well, I don't know what you mean by buy-in, okay? This was a working group. It didn't represent the school committee, and it didn't represent the select board.
Right.
And there was only 2 members of the warrant committee on it. I think that there was an understanding of why we did what we did. I think I would say that a lot of the disagreement came from the town side. So I think, this was a approach that got them to, they would like to, I'll just tell you that the town would like to change it all back to 75-25, which you'll see later on, requires big adjustments, right? Right now, it's over the last, number of years, it's been weighted towards the school side, right? But so that was sort of, one side of it. The other side was the schools, everybody would like more money. Right? That's the difficult part here. You can't make everybody happy. We have a limited pie, and we've got to divide it up. So, so that's, I don't know if I answered your question, but that was sort of, I can't say that all the committees agree with it because we won't know until they vote.
Which is about to be my next question.
Yeah.
When are they likely to vote?
I think they're waiting for us to give them something to. So the working committee consisted of, it was Christine, Brittany, Ed, myself, Gus.
So the select board wasn't on it.
Just one member.
Oh, okay.
There's one member, Gus, the chair of the school committee, Michelle Kirkby, Jeff Marsden, and Mike LaFrancesca. Okay, so
I misheard you before.
We had 2 people from the school administration, 2 people from town administration, chairs of select board and school committee, and then the warrant committee had 2 members on it. I guess we were outnumbered, or we outnumbered them, but we didn't have any administrative support. So, next slide. This is a comparison. Yes.
So I'm really not trying to go off course because I think this is a very good idea. Is this your number your and Ed's number, as opposed to your number approved by Gus Murphy and Michelle Kirkby? Or is it just you and Ed at this point?
I would say that we had a discussion with the town and Gus and understood their concerns with what we proposed, and we'll go through those concerns. You'll see the exact problem, okay?
Okay.
I'll show it to you. It's very
I'm
obvious.
really not trying to be.
It's very obvious, and so I think personally, I agree that it was a problem. I think Ed agrees that it's an issue. And so we tried to bring the parties together and propose something that we thought should be acceptable to both. Okay, does that, I think that's kind of the way it worked.
And
All right.
those parties were on board.
I believe that Gus, and I mean, you know how it ended up, right? We ended up of the working group.
Yeah, the working group was on board with this.
I think so. Yeah, I think. Look, if you ask the schools, they would say we want more money.
Of course.
Okay. So that doesn't mean they're going to reject this.
Yeah.
Okay, but they would want more money. So, all right. So.
Sorry, I said.
Introducing, okay, the compromise compares. So this slide, it compares the 3.5 and 2.6. The compromise preserves more services, right? Compared to that 3.5, 3.6. So we're at a higher override amount, so we're preserving more services. And then compared to the 3.9 and 2.8 scenario, it's more proportional to our history. Okay. Next slide. This is basically the chart, which we'll show on the next slide, but this shows you what's happened with that 75-25 split over the last 10 years. It also has, you'll see the Warrant Committee scenarios push that band outside of the, that range. So why don't we go to the slide that shows, because I think this is an important slide, if everybody can focus on it for a minute, because I think it sort of tells you what happened, right? And I think that we started out, it starts out in 2017. The top part of this slide just shows you the variance in the 75-25 split. So you have in 2017, the dotted line across is the even 75-25, right? So in 17, this 75% benchmark was in favor of the town, okay? By almost 0.4%, okay? Or the dollars are on the bottom, it was almost $200,000. The town's budget was greater than the school's budget, okay? And then we went through a couple of years in 18 and 19 where it was exactly even, 75-25 essentially. Then we hit COVID. And the COVID, the spike in fiscal 21, we had fiscal 20, it went up a little bit. Those are the years we were starting to use free cash to balance the budget. And then in fiscal 21, it went up. And what happened that year is it went up primarily because the town's budget got cut and the school's budget went up. So we did not adhere to our policy that year. We diverged from the policy. The town budgets got cut. We have the percentages for you, and the school budget went up. So the spread spiked this difference in that year. Okay, and that was once in 100-year event, right? There was not a lot of policy discussion about, do we know why we're doing this or why, it was sort of it just happened because of COVID. It basically stayed at that level in 22 and then slowly has come down and then sort of balanced out in 24, 25, 26 around the 75.4. And so you could see these dollar amounts. There's like $300,000 in this 24, 25, and 26. That's where the school budget is greater than the town budget, proportionally from the 75-25 split. Okay. And then have put in here the compromise scenarios of what happens in 27 and 28. So you have here the proposed overrides for the 364 and the 333 scenarios, and that that shows you what's happening in 25 and 26. And so I think this is a reminder that deviations from the proportionality are usually driven by extraordinary circumstances, not by a policy choice. Okay, that's kind of what happened here. All right, it wasn't a policy choice, it was COVID. Okay, and so I think that's important. So anyway, the compromise was to try to avoid creating another spike. Okay, it was keeping it within these guidelines. So the next slide goes through the override amounts. This, you could see the 3.9 had a slightly larger override by like, I don't know, $30,000 or $40,000. But it had 884 as a tax impact. And then the 3.5 was lower, but the cost of deeper service reductions. And so this compromise is in the middle. The next slide shows you the tax impact. Again, it's the 874. And then the next slide shows you this. Thank you, Ash. This was a suggestion by Ashley to put this in the presentation. It basically shows the tax impact by assessed value. So it's in a bar chart. So you could see this data that Yvonne got us, where 56% of Medfield single-family homes fall below the assessed value of $1 million. So it's likely that over half of our homes will have a tax impact less than, say, 874. Okay, I think that's a fair statement to make. Yeah,
it's a great schedule. I think one area I think we can keep better if we can put a line, because we know that 874, 401 is the basic 2.5% increase.
Yes.
It's the incremental is
473. Yeah.
So if you had, for instance, like a line that said that's your base, and this everything to the right of that is incremental.
Oh yeah.
That would make this even more descriptive.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a really good.
Yeah. I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can do that.
That says it. That's a good chart for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So next slide, why the scenario works. So it meets the override and tax impact constraints. It balances the cuts between school and town. It preserves more services than the lower growth option, maintains the proportionality, and avoids structural imbalance. And it provides a clear defensible narrative, I think, for residents. And so I think, that's, I sort of, I get asked this question a lot. I got asked today by somebody, like, can we have a conversation about the 75-25 split? And, I think as a warrant committee, I think that, you know, it's been in place for over 10 years, so, and it's basically, you know, as we thought, it's a policy guardrail that we've used. And it's, you know, it's, if the town, I think if the town and school wanted to take a step back and re-examine it, and look at that proportionality framework, whether it should stay 75-25, I think, or maybe a different approach makes sense. That would be a larger policy conversation involving the select board, the school committee, the town administration, school administration, and ultimately our community. Because I don't think it's something that the Warrant Committee should unilaterally change at this point without all those committees weighing in. And so, especially in the compressed time frame that we have to get an override article and communicate it to the residents within a month. So, so I think our role is narrower than that broader conversation. I think that can be had, but I just don't think now is the time to have it. Yeah. Do people agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Back when you put the question, can we discuss whether we should stick to 75-25? I thought the person was proposing like over the next year to year and a half, not before this town meeting. Right.
Yes.
Way to have that.
Yeah, that's what I concluded. I think that's a pretty serious discussion that involves you know, a lot of committees and boards and, you know, residents.
Steve,
I don't disagree with that, and I have a lot of things to say, but I do want to say on that one comment that it's not a perfect split. If you go back to the slide that shows when it jumped in 21, it does vary by fractions of a percentage point, by decimals. That's the reality. And if you're ready to hear my other thoughts, I will give them. But like, to say that doing this is purely in the spirit of staying to 75-25, it's not a perfect system. That shows that it's not a perfect system, and it does vary by 0.1 over time. And so I think to just scratch all the work that we've done over the last 2 months in the spirit of that split, to me, is not, it's too simple of a way to look at it. It's more complicated than that. And I can say why I think that is if you guys are ready, but I don't want to derail you.
Well,
but I don't think
no, I think we can have that conversation, but let me go through one other thing and then we can talk about that, okay? So I put together, you know, because it's all relative, right? You know, I think your comments, you know, is accurate. It hasn't been exactly 75-25 every single year, right? That hasn't happened. But the question is, what did we propose relative to that 10-year history, right? That, to me, that's the question.
Yeah, I did.
What is the proposal? Here's some. I just took screenshots of the spreadsheet that we did. You don't have enough copies there. So so I think this, I think, shows you kind of what happens, right, under each of the scenarios. So this first one is the 5% growth and the 3.6, right? So you can see the budget ends up being 75.73% for the schools and 24.27% for the town. The schools increase, they get 81% of the increase, and the town gets 19%. Okay. And so that's because the school is growing at 5% and the town's growing at 3.6%. Then if you flip over to the 459 scenario.
Can I just add to that real quick though? Because you're pointing out the percent of the increase, the deviation. But if you calculate the percent of the cuts. Like, I think my main issue with this change, of course, like, not only because of the timing, is the methodology has changed. When we started, the goal was to start with level service and then proportionately allocate cuts in a proportional manner. And so you can say that 81% of the override amount is going to the school. That is correct. But it also means that 81% of the cuts are going to the school department. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It looks like you're giving more money, but you're also actually proportionately cutting more when your starting value is a level service.
Well,
And that, I just think that this,
I know, well,
it is misleading a little bit because you're not considering the delta between the level service and the new amount.
so when we wrote.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, does everyone know what I mean?
Let me try to explain. When we did the scenarios, other than the level service, everything else was an arbitrary, guess. We didn't, it was sort of like, let's do some assumptions here and run some scenarios and figure out what the relative amount of override could be and what the relative tax impact could be. So there was no science to picking the numbers that we picked. And we did compare, you're right, we did compare cuts against that level service budget. And we looked at where that aligned with some of those scenarios, the different breakpoints of cuts and under different scenarios. And so no disagreement there. I think we did do that. So I think,
I just mean
but we did
the gain is like
we did it
proportional to the pain.
What
is what I think we're missing, because when we look at the new scenario, the cuts for the school department are 606,000. The cuts for the town department are 39,000.
Correct.
And when I do the math on that, that means that the school department is shouldering 94% of the cuts of this new scenario.
Right.
And I don't personally think that is us looking at the town as one town.
Okay, but the budgets end up being within this, they end up being 70.
I know, yeah, I know the numbers. But you're still
70.
talking 0.1s, like.
So the budget ends up being for 70. So the school's share of the budget increases under the compromise scenario. It goes from 7.45, I believe. It goes from, so school.
I know it increases. No.
The school budget was 75.48 last year. Under the compromise scenario of the total budget, that goes up to 75.68% of the total budget.
I have
Okay.
75.5, but on the spreadsheet.
Well, it's 75.68 on this thing I just sent. Wait, I'm sorry. No, I didn't print out sorry, you're right. This is the scenario. So it goes from 75.48 to 75.54.
Yeah.
Okay. Under the compromise scenario. So it's still going up. And the town department's budget as a total percentage of the total budget is going down from 24.54 or 52 to 24.46. So the town is getting less money than they did last year relative to the total budget, and the school's getting more money under the compromise scenario.
I know.
Okay. So,
but
and
I don't think, like, I think it's really misleading, and I don't think it helps our committee to look like we care about the whole town equally when we have a slide that says it balances the cuts between the school and the town, because it doesn't. The cuts are 94% of the cuts are to the school.
so it balances it to the historical split. Okay.
Yeah, but like, we're faced with a really challenging year, and we're going to decide this year to try to get closer to 75-25.
Yeah.
That hurts the kids in the school way more. It does. I would love to hear someone argue me against that, because
I just have one question, because I think the assumption there is that the level funded budget comes in at 5%, and I just don't know that's the same number we've seen prior years from the school.
it's not, and that's because we went through the budgets and we know that
higher.
But we know why, because that's our job as this committee. We know why it went up 5%. It was an unusual year, but
The exercise we went through that showed,
I really want to hear your point of view, because I'm surprised about this. I was really shocked.
When you look at the two alternatives we gave them, the 3.9 and the 3.5.
Mhm.
And you looked at what happened to the percentage split as you went out, that 75.48.
It's on the sheet, I guess, on the sheet.
It started to go up, so that the schools in those two scenarios were getting an even greater proportion of the money. And we said, well, no, that's the wrong direction. We want that line to start drifting down to the 75-25.
I get that.
So in order to do that, you had to adjust somewhere between those two scenarios, the 3.9 and 3.5. And when we came up with this scenario, that at least tried to level it off, with the understanding with that small group that over time, if we continue to implement the 75-25, that will gradually come down. So it's not perfect, but you could let it go in the other direction. You didn't want to start giving the schools incrementally more over the next 2 years. So therefore, you had to cut it.
Yeah,
I get that, but I think the optics are.
Optics.
I don't like it, and I don't support it, is my position.
Okay, all right, we understand.
Yeah.
I think that, I think the way I looked at this, I'll explain why I looked at this, is that the argument that I heard from the town and Gus, and that, Ed just went through of the town getting less of a percentage of the overall tax money of this town over a 2-year period. I understood that argument, and given relative to where we've been historically. So I weighed the fact that we could spend the next 3 weeks arguing between the town and the school over $100,000. We could, and we could upset different groups. I say probably already upset, but at some point we have to move something forward and put it in front of town meeting, because ultimately this is town meeting's decision. They can modify this. They can change it, right? If they don't like the split we came up with, it can be changed at town meeting. But I do think that there's a benefit, if we can, to get all the committees to support this and to move it forward because I think if one group is not on board with this, so let's say the select board doesn't support this, and we don't, to be honest with you, who knows what's going to happen with the election? I mean, we have one candidate who doesn't support an override at all, right? Gus supports an override, but the other one doesn't. So we may have a select board that doesn't support anything, depending on what happens at the election. But I thought it was important to try to keep these committees together and move something forward, because I've seen what happens when we're not together at town meeting. We become divisive, and the conversation drifts in another direction, and if you don't have one committee on board, then it's just a school override at that point.
Did that, we were plus 7,000 on the town.
Yeah.
We did that scenario.
Yeah.
And we said, oh my gosh, the schools have to cut, and the town's going to get 7,000 extra. So that doesn't work. So we adjusted it down.
Yeah.
So
I
it's not,
I know, but I don't I don't want to go against the group. That's why I'm nervous. I honestly don't want to go against the group at all. I don't want to go against you, but I think this creates more of a problem than we had before to pass an override, because I think it looks really unbalanced when you look at the numbers of the cuts. And we've talked about cuts all along. I am not saying I don't agree with 75-25, but I do think we're talking about really minor changes, and to have spent the last 2 months talking about cuts, prioritized list of cuts, level service, and then all of a sudden to go, let's just get back to that 75-25. I don't think it is in line with what we've been doing. I wish,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's certainly in line with what we've been doing the last 2 years. Last 2 years, we've been putting budgets in front of town meeting that allocate incremental revenue of 75-25.
The last 2 years have not been this difficult. So when we get faced with a difficult year, we're going to right the ship back and cut one department 94% of the cuts to one and 6% to the other. I just
challenge it just a little bit, because I think we're comparing apples and oranges a little bit there, because when you start with a bigger budget, it's going to look like you're taking, so they're taking a percentage cut off of the budget. So both are taking cuts, like not denying anything there, but sort of like, I'm going to do a wild equivalency just to try to see if I'm misunderstanding, please correct me. So if you had the state budget and the town budget, like just to go wildly different, right? And both were cut by some amount, but you combined them together and said, well, the state's taking 99% of those cuts because that dollar amount is bigger. So we're really talking about percentages. Does that make sense?
That's where I was thinking too. Plus you're starting high,
right?
Which we haven't seen 5%.
But if it was consistently cut, like the problem is what we started at level service. If we started at 75-25, I get it, but that wasn't where we started working from.
Right. The part I'm breaking down is I think it's dangerous to throw out 94% of the cuts are going to the schools, because we're talking about percentage cuts when the town starts with a much lower number. So if we take $5,000 from the school, that percentage is much lower than $5,000 from the town. And again, not proposing anything different, but I just want to be really careful, because to me, that could be really misleading, because we're really talking about percentage differences. So when you start with a bigger number,
I can run those numbers, but I think it's going to be.
You can't take those two numbers and compare them. Right.
So I did run these numbers though.
No, I mean, I believe your numbers. Like, I believe your numbers are right. That if you organize it that way, can you help me here? Because I think we're thinking the same thing.
Like, so I mean, if you take percentage of a bigger
So
number.
if somebody has $100,000 and somebody has $25,000 as a budget, you take 10% off of each of those. Right. So let's say, so you've got late. Let's say $10,000 off of one and
$2,500 off the other.
Thank you. But you put those together, then it looks like the one that started with the bigger number is taking a bigger percentage of the cut, even though they took the same percentage.
But yes, that's not what's happening. It's not like 39,000 divided by 15 million is one number, and 606,000 divided by 46 million, which is the school budget, is another number, and they're very different, is what I'm saying.
So I don't think we're disagreeing about that. I think the comparison on the raw number, when you take a bigger budget and a smaller budget, you put the same amount out of each of them, and you just take those dollar amounts and put them together, it's going to look like the one with the bigger budget bears more cuts proportionally. But it's not that, it's not apples to apples. The town and the school don't have the same budget to start with, so you don't compare it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, that's the only part I want to be really careful about putting a number like that out there, because that's kind of it's comparing apples to oranges.
So, I don't think it's directly in response to what you've been saying, but the presentation that I heard, that I found most chilling, was the fire department. I think the fire department, I got the sense that they're running on fumes and have been for a while. And that we've been underfunding a bunch of town services for a long time. We're cutting, if there's no override, DPW is gonna make cuts by deferring maintenance on vehicles, which to me is the stupidest idea I've ever heard in my life. But I mean, I know that's what Mo's gonna do, because he's gotta make some savings. So, and Ed along with Michael and Francesca gave a great presentation about why the school budget seems to inexorably go up by at least 4.1% every year, no matter how much you jump up and down and whatever, you're just sort of stuck with that increase unless you do something radical. My daughter's got a great education in this town, and I want children to continue to get a great education in this town. But there are other services too, and everyone is going to suffer this year, I think, pretty clearly. And so, to me, the overriding thing isn't that your numbers aren't right. I'm sure they're total. I would guess they are completely right. It's that we have to find a compromise. We have to reach agreement. I think it's super important to present a united front, come up with a proposal to present to the school board and the select board and say, this is what the warrant committee thinks, because I'm not sure. I think it's ideal that they're waiting for us to go forward, but that's the reality. They're waiting for us to go forward. So I may or may not be being as responsive to you as you'd like, but I just think this is sort of sausage cutting. We have to cut the sausage somehow and come up with a number and that nobody's much going to love. That's sort of the art of it.
Right.
I get that, but this is such a drastic change.
With $100,000. It's a difference of $100,000.
So that's
between
No,
between
it
between
is
the
drastic
three now
change proportionally.
between
Like,
the 3.9, excuse me, between the 3.9 scenario and this compromise scenario, it's $100,000 that's going from the schools to the town. That's the difference we're talking about. $100,000.
So that's my question is, but get two questions, but one's I think easily answered more than the other. So when Dr. Marsden was here presenting, he talked about preserving the instructional core, the phrase that stuck with me, at 3.9%. 3.9% to 3.64%, we're talking about $115,957 delta. Do we preserve the instructional core? Dr. Marsden's in his working group. Do we preserve the instructional core at 3.64%? I think that's what a lot of town people are going to latch on. If the answer is no, I think we have a problem. If the answer is yes, a little bit cleaner path.
So I think to answer that, I think what I heard, and Ed, you can chime in. So when you go from the 3.9 scenario down to the 3.5 scenario, if you remember the breakpoints of the cuts, there were 2 FTEs at Dale in that bracket, right? When you drop down. So this is basically 1 FTE.
Right.
Okay. The compromise takes 1 more FTE out of the 3.9 scenario. That's what this does. I think that I think that there's still that FTE is at Dale. The impact is it will mean, I don't know, I don't have the numbers, but it'll be slightly higher class size.
Yeah, there was like
One teacher leaving means they put a few more kids in the class at Dale Street. So if that's, I don't know, that's a question. Your question is a good question. It's probably something for the school department to answer, but it's hard for me to say that the whole budget doesn't preserve this, the core, because of 1 FTE.
Well, I understand that, but if Dr. Marsden's, this is where I'm getting lost. If Dr. Marsden's on this small working group, and this working group's come to this number split, what did Dr. Marsden say about 364? I'm sure he probably said something about it.
Well, it didn't come up at the meeting. He didn't say anything. He didn't, I mean, he wasn't happy that the number went down. He wasn't happy the number went down, but
Well,
we didn't ask him that question.
Well, I know, but the reason why I would ask him that question is because, when he was in front of us and, he talked about 3.9 and the school committee went over the top and said 5.02. Now the compromise is we're going to go to 3.64. The follow-up question to this instructional core question is, we don't know right now. The school committee going to get behind this?
Right.
I'm willing to venture the answer is no.
I think.
What's the alternative? This is the discussion that,
Well, I know
nobody is focusing on.
No,
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Nobody, and we're all arguing over $100,000. The alternative is it's close to $1 million of cuts that have to happen. And the FTEs that go away.
Just for the record, I'm arguing against the methodology. I'm not arguing against $100,000, just to be clear.
So you have a principled argument.
I have a principal argument
with
why this got changed, and this is taken away from us voting on 3526, which I think was a viable option, which was much less of a tax impact as well. That was what I was planning to come into this meeting to discuss, but I got derailed by this whole percentage change.
So you would be a proponent of having less of an override.
I think we should have discussed that at the warrant committee. I
know you weren't at our last meeting, but we did discuss a lot. Let's discuss quite a bit what tax impact would be realistic, and we settled on those two options. So I think everybody was comfortable with the tax impact of those two options. We didn't discuss which one people preferred. We didn't want to go into the working group with one choice. We wanted to have some input from the working group on what they thought. And they thought it was unanimous. Everybody thought we needed the higher override amount.
In the 3.5.
In the 3.5.
Which is
that was very unanimous.
Good. Awesome. I still think the warrant committee may have wanted to say we supported a lower amount. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
So far, you're the only one who's brought it up, but other people think we should have a lower override amount.
Is that what you're saying?
Consensus.
Yes. Well, I'm saying that
compromise.
I'm feeling very torn because I wasn't expecting this shift in the methodology of how we come up with the percent by department, which we completely changed. I also was, because I didn't expect that, I've had to rethink everything about this.
Yeah.
But I also thought that I told Steve yesterday, I spent time at the Council on Aging talking with seniors worried about overrides, and so I have that in my head about the amount, and it just seems like we just backed into the highest possible number we could, and we completely changed the percents at the 11th hour is how I see it, and I'm sorry that is not popular, but that is, I think, a valid control opinion.
No, that's fine.
I agree when you're looking at it. You see 606 and 39, 36, whatever that number is. You say, oh my God, that's a big discrepancy. You're right. They seem to be disproportionate. But the other side of that, which we talked about earlier, is if we went with one of those other scenarios, 3.5 or 3.9, the schools would gradually, over the next 2 years, 27 and 28, actually increase their percentage of the total budget. And we didn't want that to happen, and nor did it, certainly not the town and the select board are saying, well, that we don't want to live with that. We've seen that trend. We haven't been exactly at 75-25 past 10 years. Schools have always got about 4/10 more, but we don't want to continue that trend. So in order to reverse that trend, we're trying to level it out. Is what this 3.6, 3.33 does. That's the other half of the equation. And I agree with you. You look at it and it looks disproportionate. That disproportionality comes based on $100,000 difference in giving the schools more to take off versus the town.
Right. And
that's what it makes a big impact.
It's slightly misleading though, because it's $100,000. I think it's, yeah, well, okay, fine. All right. It's more like 100
The 116, yeah. But I mean, I think the point, I'll come back to this, I think Ed said it well, is we didn't want that, because what's the basis for explaining to the town why the proportion of the school budget should go up over the next 2 years, when we've been working to try to bring it down over the past 2 years. We've been doing 75-25 to bring that extra 0.5% they have down in balance. So
it'd be harder to wind it down once you want.
Yeah, I mean, once you go up higher, it even becomes harder to bring it back.
If we continue to do 75-25, we will come back down over subsequent years.
And Gus's argument is, if you continue to let that happen, eventually you have a school department for a town. You don't have anything else. Theoretically, if you continue to let the school take a bigger percentage of the overall budget, you don't have all the rest of the town. They become 80% of the budget or 85% of the budget if you let it go on. And so that discussion needs to happen outside of this process, was my conclusion. I don't think we should step in the middle of that as a warrant committee.
That seems like the short-term path forward and solution. And then there's two issues. Long-term is going to be that 75-25, that's something we want to entertain. And then it's going to be, what's the definition of level service and what's behind that? Because it's going to become unsustainable at some point, services we're offering.
Right.
I also,
but that's long-term.
Hey, Brent, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that you're there. Is there anything you want to say? Just chime in.
No, I'm just trying to get my kids in bed.
Them stay up,
Go ahead.
have them watch this, it'll put them to sleep.
So why don't we go to this next slide? Just finish this deck up and then we can take it down. And then continue this dialogue. What's the next slide?
Can I just also add something? I keep thinking about this slide where we talked about the cuts and we prioritize them and what for each percentage. And when you look at the differences between, the different 3-3 scenario, it's not significantly different on the cuts here. Like, we're not talking anything huge, right? Like, there's not,
right.
It's not like you could keep talking.
Yeah, we could
different percentages.
We could argue. We could, like I said, we could continue this for 2-3 weeks, arguing between ourselves when we really should be spending time, in my opinion, communicating, getting all the committees on board and communicating to the town. We have like 3 or 4 weeks before town meeting, 4 weeks before town meeting, why we think an override is necessary.
Yeah.
And if we're arguing,
there's gonna be some number or like, heck no, I don't want any tax increase at all.
Yeah.
No
I don't know what
happy.
that number is.
Right. But we need to start talking about all of the amount of jobs we're going to save with this override, the positions we're going to restore with this override.
And that's why I thought my question was a very simple, straightforward one. A lot of people on board. Does this preserve the instructional core of Medfield Public Schools? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, I think we've got an easier path forward.
Yeah.
Well, no disrespect.
Sure. No.
To you. But if Jeff Morrison comes on board on this, which I think he should, hi Jeff, then I think that goes a lot of the way for it. Is it less? Jeff can even say it. Is it less than I like? Of course it's less than I like. But this is a reasonable path forward. It preserves most of what the core educational program in the Medfield Public Schools is. And therefore I support it. I hope that's what he'll say.
Well,
there's also they're having a meeting on Thursday. On their agenda, they have to look at bus fees. Theoretically, they could impose a bus fee and solve the $100,000 problem.
Okay.
I mean, there are options. There are options they have because the town meeting approves one number the town budget doesn't have that luxury. Their budget gets approved, as we all know, line item by line item. So whatever gets voted at the town line items, they've got to manage through. The school has a little more luxury with how they manage their budget. So I'm sorry, Ed, I interrupted.
Jim's alternative is I have to cut 600,000. If this fails, I gotta cut $1.4 million.
Yeah.
So he hates the 606. He hates that to your point, that it looks disproportional. And I guess it is. But the alternative is worse. So he's gonna, common sense would be, he's gonna have to support that $600,000 cut. Doesn't like it one bit.
Yeah, well, I said this last week, or our last meeting, that if 364, 39, whatever the number is, I would vote for that because personally, I like that better than making these even bigger cuts. But, yeah, not disagreeing with that.
There's no winners here.
Yeah, I think you said it well. Everybody's pissed off, so I think that we probably
that probably means we've come to the right. If nobody's happy, then that's probably.
I think we're probably doing a good job.
But so I put this down as next steps. I mean, this is what we're dealing with in a timeline. We have school committee is meeting on Thursday. They have on their agenda to talk about this and potentially vote on it. I personally think it would be great if they could vote on something before we have an election. Instead of after.
The next meeting is until like the 20th.
Yeah.
That's right, because they could tell members.
I
don't know.
Yeah, you never know who's gonna what the new members are gonna do. And then we have a warrant committee hearing on the 31st. And then April 6th is the next select board meeting. So they have to, vote.
April 6th, our next meeting, and then April 7th.
I'm sorry, the week of April 6th is that Tuesday.
6 is us, 7.
We're meeting on the 6th. Select board meets on the 7th. So we technically have to vote on this before the select board. Yeah. But I would like to take before we leave tonight, it won't be a formal, but I think I would like to be able to tell both those committees that we agree that this is the best, the best solution so far right now, or most of us do, and that this is kind of what people should move forward with. It's not a final approved vote, but I think if we send that message, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think we have we have a school committee that I think understands what the implications are of not having an override, and they know the difference. I mean, nobody's going to be happy. Like I said, it's an impossible situation. You can't make everybody happy. But I think this is the best we can do. So I don't know what other people think.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Okay. I know, Emily, I understand your viewpoint. That's fine.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
But I think I'll send an email out tomorrow to those committees explaining kind of our deliberations and what we kind of settled on. Okay. All right. You could take that down. Is there I think we could skip the updates of committee.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think there's anything else on our agenda. You don't have anything, right? Sorry to keep you here so late.
We're gonna put some articles here we can talk about.
We'll have to do it next meeting. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Yes. Elizabeth? Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And Brent?
Yes.
Okay, good night. Thank you, Brent.
All right.